Just cross over.
Alex, come over!
Didn't give
So
you
where are you
the
off to?
Didn't give you the stick.
Off to. Wouldn't be the first
You know, I will
time.
say, since my hip has been bothering me for the last 4 months, I have a new appreciation for people that have chronic pain. Like, I probably didn't really understand that very well. It's very annoying. Like the
Well,
29th,
if it fits under my pillow.
and I'm really looking forward to it.
It's nice. Kids all have groups to their age.
That'd be yours.
It doesn't hurt. I hurt.
Just in case. I was talking with Andrew and he got me all worked
Because
up.
shocks don't bother me generally anyway. Okay.
Probably the last person he's. Yeah, he might have taken it.
Go to that
One he's taken out of
my son took me, I didn't get to go inside, but on my computer.
I'd like to call this meeting to order, if I could.
Go right ahead.
You're the mayor.
All right. Can we have a roll call? Start over here. Okay.
Cecilia Gritman,
Ron Turner.
Alex, Joe Duffy,
Corey Mendoza.
Joshua Cook.
Mike Best.
Frank Marbury.
Carol Croft.
Jack Miller.
Okay. Who we missing?
Vicky.
Chief is hiding in the corner.
Chief, what are you doing? Chief, get your butt over here. No, 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 no. No, you can't hide.
I don't think he has much of an ego.
You might be in the spotlight.
no, not tonight.
Oh, Cloyce, you did make it. Good. Cloyce Kelly's here.
Place Kelly's at it. Mr. Kelly? There's one for him. Okay, let's go into number 2. Presentation and discussion regarding financial analyses and analysis and priorities pertaining to capital improvements. Mr. Duffy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Thank you guys for coming out tonight. I passed out a short little 3-page printout. No slides tonight.
About damn time.
Not damn time.
For him.
No slides for me.
Frank and I are going to have a talk after class.
Okay. Yeah, I had that lesson last study session, so I totally get it. So I thought I would just, really 2 major goals here. I just wanted to recap really quick all of our major capital things, anything over about $50,000 that we put in last year's budget, just to go through those so you guys can see what was in there and just as a reminder what we did. I'll talk about the general fund, the water and sewer funds, the enterprise funds being separate budgets, and then we'll go to the capital improvement fund where we moved $2 million over to do some major capital projects. And that's really where I want to shut up and not really say much. Frank, we just want to be quiet. We put a few things in that we sort of recommended, but we want you as council to discuss that because we have an opportunity now to move some of these long-waited projects or things we've had on the back burner forward. But we want you guys to discuss and help staff prioritize which ones we should move forward on. So it's not a night to make a decision, it's just an evening just to discuss the pros and cons of each of those major projects. So I'll be pretty brief on the first 2, and then I'll hand over the capital improvement projects, and we can just start just a general discussion and see where it goes from there. So in the general fund, we put enough cash, we budgeted for 1 new police car. Some parks maintenance equipment. He's actually got 2 units last year, one with the grant, one that we paid for, so we did put in another one.
Good.
Some parks equipment. Last year we did about $65,000. This year they've got a couple things that they want to do just to get them the equipment they need really to do their job. And if you've noticed, the parks the ball field and stuff looks significantly better. Next year we did $50,000 for Old Home Manor cleanup. Frank's guys have been doing a really good job on that, and that's just if we have to pay for some disposal. We have a tank out there, for example, that might be about $10,000 to abate, just sort of ballpark figure. So just give them enough money. $50,000 for parking lot maintenance, roofing, and HVA repairs, another 55. And that's basically, if you can see, I went out for future years just to start looking at which parking lots we need to fix, which roofing and HVA systems we need to fix, and we just want to hit one section at a time and do it over a 4 or 5 year period. So I'll be reviewing that with Kenny, those needs, and coming up with a schedule, and we'll show you, okay, we think we need to do this one first, this one second, and we'll just see how far the money goes every year. Memory Park restrooms, which you guys have approved last meeting. Mechanic service truck, which will have a utility bed on it, 350, 250, somewhere in there, vehicle. And then another $100,000 to the document management system. This is phase 2. We did about 100,000 last year. We have another 100 this year, and I believe around 50-ish in the last year to get it all installed. In the capital asset fund, and this fund has around $400,000 into it, and it's where by town code that whenever we get refunds or sales tax audit revenue, any miscellaneous one-time lump sums of cash we're supposed to put in this fund, and we're supposed to use it for asset replacement. So we put $50,000 for a vehicle. The one that we're gonna recommend is that we buy a Ford, all-wheel drive Ford Escape for the building department. We'll have about 20 left, and if we receive any additional refunds, we might be able to do another $20,000 to $30,000 vehicle in it, but you know, we'll do that later in the fiscal year. In the HERF fund, Frank has budgeted for a water truck, which he's looking to get a used one, state surplus or something like that, or from a rental return or something, to see if we can save significantly on that dollar amount. And we'll bring that to council when that time comes. And then with the roads, we had originally thought about doing a pothole patcher with oil storage and traffic. Frank is looking at doing maybe getting a demo on that before we actually purchase one.
Yeah, we're still struggling to find one, and I've talked to the national supplier. He's talking to his reps in Phoenix, and I told him I wouldn't even consider leasing or purchasing one without some sort of demo or rental of that. So they're trying to see what they can get for us to see how it works.
So yeah, so we'll see where it goes. So that's really the general fund. On the next page, I have both the water and sewer enterprise fund.
You want questions as we go?
Yeah.
Now that we finished the page, would it be a good time
Yeah.
to ask? Police car, this is out and out purchase, this is no,
Right.
so,
This is a fully outfitted car. It's gonna run 50, 52. We get them on state contract, including the outfitting. All the equipment is on state contract also.
I remembered when we talked about police cars before that we were gonna try to get on a purchase versus financing. Are we still, is that still the plan?
I have something on page 3 that will address the amount we have left over.
Okay.
So one of the recommendations when we get to the capital improvement is maybe paying off that last lease purchase and just going ahead and paying it off now, which will free up enough cash that we'll have a little over 200,000. If the budget stayed equal, we'll have 200,000 cash that we can use to buy 2 police cars a year.
Okay. Do we know what that number is yet? Have we worked out just what that, how many we need to buy per year to stay on a cycle?
Yeah.
We did a replacement schedule for Joe, just based on the average mileage we're putting on the cars, so yes, we're doing a replacement schedule so that we can stay ahead of the curve and not have to buy 6 or 7 cars at once like we just did. And
Great.
just try to keep it 1 or 2 a year.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, it's really, we're shooting for 2 a year. 2 a year would be perfect.
That will keep us,
In units, yeah.
okay.
And that might be,
Which will give us a total replacement round of how long?
How many years cycle?
Is that it? Yeah.
6 or 7 years, I think. Generally, it just depends. We try to watch the mileage, so we have some people that drive vehicles up more than others, like supervisors drive less, so what we do periodically is rotate the cars. So if they're starting to get miles on patrol, we'll rotate that one to a supervisor, and then put the brand new ones into patrol. So we try to balance that mileage as best we can, push 6 to 7 years out of each car.
yeah, and we've actually scheduled out all the cars by year with mileage. But it also include any admin cars or any of the detectives' cars that don't need to be fully outfitted. So we'll drop those units in as required.
And they last quite a bit longer because they're not out there patrolling every day. So the car I'm driving is 6 or 7 years old, and it probably has another 5 years, 6 years on it, so we'll get a lot more years out of those.
Are we gonna use that, pretty much the same formula when we're talking parking lot maintenance, roofing, HVAC repairs? Everything is gonna now start a little bit more,
It's been deferred maintenance for quite a long time, yeah.
okay.
So he's trying to get them all on a schedule so that, we're trying to stay ahead of the game and not wait till it breaks down,
Yeah,
and stay on top of it.
excellent.
Yeah, so we're gonna take an inventory of where everything is now. And like, we know the community center roof is probably gonna be the first one we fix, but even this one is getting pretty high up there on the list. The police department's roof is pretty bad, so we'll do one, and then if we have enough money, we'll try to squeeze two in the budget year. And between those two, that'll give us enough money to do that. HVA system's the exact same thing. You get them evaluated, see where they're at, and then just keep working on it.
Give them on a cycle.
Keep them on the cycle.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question. I only see $50,000 for Old Home Manor cleanup. That's not gonna do much. And I see no planning besides,
That's the next, page 3, we have that.
Yeah, so this is just the amount for, that we'd
It's
already
just getting
budgeted.
rid of the trash and debris that's still out there. Is that what you're thinking it was?
I'm talking about looking further too,
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, so
funding
the-
in the future.
we have that on the capital.
The cleanup item was intended to be for that corner at 4 North and Jerome Junction
Will that do?
specifically.
Okay.
It may not get it all, but it'll probably be as much as we can handle this year with the other activities we have.
And they've already done
Well, we'll need to talk about that.
significantly
later.
better.
Absolutely.
So I think what you need to understand, though, this is already budgeted, the front page.
Sure.
Yeah.
And the other two are, it's the menu for you guys to decide what you want to fund. Because there's been a whole, it seems like out of 7 of you, you all have some different ideas of
Sure.
what's more important.
That's the way it should be.
And I'd also recommend going out there and seeing all the work that's been done already, just within our normal budget.
They've made really huge progress, but like the tank I mentioned has old fuel in it and, or something in it, but,
Tach oil.
we're getting a quote to get it removed, just to get it out of here. And it might be a $10,000 number to do that, so we're just not sure. So on page 2, this is the water and sewer bucket. I put them both together because they're enterprise funds. And we really try not to mix general funds with enterprise funds. The enterprise funds have paid back the general fund pretty much all the money that they own. Because while they were in the red, we kept funding, the general fund put the cash in to keep them solvent. So next year, in the water, we have the building and we split it 50-50. You can also see it down in the sewer, so we have 160 in each. Water fill station, we actually have a provider, a new vendor that we're looking at, and we're getting quotes from, who does like City of Flagstaff and quite a few of the municipalities around here. It'll be a system credit card based. Should function much better than ours.
Is that gonna be on 2 North?
It'll be by Walgreens, the first one, but we're looking at maybe retrofitting and possibly installing another one somewhere if we can come up with a good
If we can
location.
find a location, for now, I think the best thing is just to replace it where it's at and try and figure out, depending on future extensions, where we may be able to find a better location.
Yeah, I can only concern if that area grows, gonna be a lot of traffic there for
Yeah.
a water fill station.
If you look down the funding column, the second column over, when I say fund, I mean that's from the enterprise fund, that's own cash that it has. We're doing the drying beds, the collection system cleaning. That will be an ongoing thing, 75 per year, just to do as much sewer as we can. There's a company that actually goes out and can determine where the system's dirtier. In some areas, they have a technology that can test it. So I think they were talking about recommending that. And then we know where to go clean the system. The headworks and belt press, Frank's repairing the belt press. A new one will probably be, the guys are looking at different technology, but this will get the old one working.
Right.
I put in a WIFA reserve. And what that is we have $866,000 that every year we put this, WIFA requires us to save this money every year with our debt service payment. but we can use it to repair and replace items that have worn out in our plant. So that basically they give you a 20-year loan, and they say you need to put a little bit in the bank every year because if something breaks, we want you to use this money to fix it. We used it to fix or to replace all the filters, the $350,000 a couple of years ago. So I'm planning on and requesting that we use that, and they'll let us do it.
So the Whitford Reserve is not a loan,
It's cash in the bank.
okay.
Yeah, it's actually an RLGIP account, so it's our cash. We write them and ask them, can we use it for these two projects? And of course, they say yes.
And can I elaborate on that just a little bit? The Headworks, again, just to remind us, look at getting a redundant screening system. We're pretty much down to one right now, so we need to get a second one in place that can work, a rotomat type screen. And the belt press, that's for the repair of the existing belt press, but we're not going to rest on that because we spend, what do we estimate, about $70,000 a year in biosolids removal?
75, yeah.
So we're looking at ways that maybe other types of water removal systems like a centrifuge or a screw press that might be more efficient than that belt press, and either look at that as maybe a future year's expense if we can get kind of how quick it'll pay itself off, or look at that as part of the planned expansion when we do that.
How expensive is it? Are those two things?
It may be in the couple $100,000 range, but that's where we wanted to do some research, see how efficient they are, and kind of develop, is it worth the money to go to something new or just keep what we've got? So we wanted to do kind of a cost-benefit analysis before we bring that to council.
Yeah, we went out to bid for biosolids, and it'll be on your consent agenda item. We only had one bidder, the people that Waste Management, the folks that have been doing it so far, and they raised their price on us.
And
So
yeah, and some of those other.
I'm just
Oh.
wondering if you're going to put 60,000 into that press that don't work well.
Yeah, well,
Or
it
you're
works.
going to get enough moisture out to make it pay for itself quicker.
Yeah, we're just not there yet, and we have to keep it running. And you might wind up needing to modify some of the building too, depending on what you have in there. So to me, there's too many unknowns. We need to fix what we have now to keep it running, and it'll serve itself for several years. And that'll also be part of the equation is when we invest this 60,000 in the repair here, let's not waste that money. Let's get our life out of it before we go buying something new and schedule that at the appropriate time. So we'll bring that all well vetted out with some numbers to it next time you see it.
But typically 2 to 3 years, is that what you're saying for the belt press?
I think so, before it needs heavy maintenance. So I think we'll be able to get our money out of it. That's why I was looking more towards combining it with an overall plan expansion rather than trying to make some major modification now. I would rather, if you got someone there working on your plan, it's cheaper when you have them there. So if I do something that big, I kind of want to wait and think about it and make sure it's the right thing to do.
So in the future years, you can see we're starting to throw in an equalizer basin and also plant expansion and design. We're just starting to put numbers out so that it's just on the radar. We know it's coming, and as you know, I just think once it gets to a certain point, we have to design, and then we have to start construction. So it's out there. So the colored items, and on the next page you'll see them too. These are a couple things that have just come up that we need to talk to council about. One of them is some strategic sewer line extensions. We know we have an issue with Smith Court, where we have, and Frank will pull up a few lots, and then Perkinsville Road. So Frank, I'll let you talk about those.
Yeah, what I maybe would propose is what we've got is when you see these developments outside of subdivisions where lots split, you wind up getting clusters almost sometimes. So this is one example. This is Smith Court, is a little cul-de-sac. It's an easement, and this is, for reference, it's out 1 West, just before 1 West on Center Street. It's along that new sewer line that went out to Molly Ray. This is Heidi Lane over here to the right.
Okay.
So what we've got is a developer came in with these 2 lots next to Center Street and said, I want to build houses on these. Well, per our code, those are close enough to require sewer hookup and extension to the farthest end of the property. So So that red line is what he's obligated to build for those 2 lots. So we're looking, well, he could put in for a repayment on these 2. I think this split is in the process or soon to happen. But we looked at, well, if we got contractors out there, what would it take to go ahead and extend all the way into that cul-de-sac and serve all of these lots except for the exception of the house that's already out there? And that's where maybe strategically using some of these extension funds to get these areas where maybe you're not burdening one guy trying to build a single house with extending this is about $50,000 to $60,000 project. If you're going to build one house, that may be a big chunk to bite off, even if you could get repaid conceivably from the other homeowners. You don't know when they're going to build those homes.
But if we're gonna collect $6,000 on each of those homes,
For the connection fee alone,
connection fee,
you
so-
can also assess the extension and get that 55 or 60,000 or the majority of it back.
to the properties, yeah. And Andrew has talked about that we can come, have an agreement that we can assess each of those properties. So we have to front the cash up front to do it, but we'll get it back double. Plus we'll have sewer customers, so we'll receive their revenue once the houses are paid.
So we've got
It
this
just might be
one,
a matter of time.
plus we've got another one off Perkinsville where you had a 10-acre parcel split 3 times with these green, that dark red line is the easement. Well, then these lots on the left side split from the split, and now they're all splitting again, so you went from 1 lot to 13, and we've got water and sewer in Perkinsville. But our code with water, it talks about we're within our water service area. The trying to find the for extending mains through other developments.
Is that El Camino del Rey? Or
No, it's
whatever?
just to the east of it, between it and the wash. There's no
It's not a
street
road.
sign or road name for that easement through there.
Is there any building there, or
They're looking at building homes, but right now what we told them is the owner of these first 3 lots came in,
Yeah,
and
why
we
don't you
said,
explain what kind of happened, and it kind of leaves Frank in a bad position on some of these.
we said we have water and sewer adjacent to your property, so you need to extend to the farthest end. Well, that's 450 feet. You're talking $90,000 by the time you get through water and sewer.
Well, but how the first guy came and talked to you, and then,
Yeah, well, that's these first 3 is that first guy.
but then he backed out.
He's
And now the second
well, he's
guy.
threatening to back out. Now the second guy came in and said, "You can't make me extend," and
Because now you're past the 400 feet.
he doesn't
It's a
want to
little
pay
game
for it.
playing.
So they're talking about withdrawing, and our code's not it's fairly clear on sewer with some distances and things. Water, it talks about approach mains. It's got a section that allows for approach mains and the repayment of extensions, but there's no real distance, so there's nothing that says they're in our water service area, so whether or not you make them connect that's what I kind of wanted to get some direction from council, is should they connect? Should they be allowed to put in wells and septic when they're that close to water and sewer? Or what's the direction of council when it comes to that? And do you want to start applying some of the extension funds to be able to front these money and get these lots connected to the system?
how confident are we that these folks are gonna build in there? Or is this just a pipe dream?
Well, they bought the land.
And they split it.
And
so,
they've
I mean,
developed
And
lots. The first 3, I think they're out of California, but they've developed some other lots down 1 east, put some manufactured homes on them and sold them. The second one's out of Scottsdale, but
it's not
she's
just-
talking about moving up here. I don't know if that's
And he's already put lots over,
Are they zoned for that kind of?
where
Probably 1 acre zoning.
He's
is
done
it?
lots in other parts of town.
the other subdivision that was created in Perkinsville.
Okay.
They're
That one
acre
off
re-
Camino del Sol, or Salida del Sol.
Yeah, on that
They're
one.
1 acre residential?
Yes, this is all SR1.
Okay.
Ross Cobb's original property.
You know, and listening last week to Prescott's study session having to do with servicing outside their municipal boundaries, you know, the concern they have with Chino Valley is more wells, more septic tanks. Not that I'm saying that we should control that, but we are all responsible for trying to get to safe yield at some point. And if we have an opportunity maybe to take the low-hanging fruit and put people onto sewer and water, I think it's kind of a responsible thing to do for.
What's the feelings of people? Personally, I'm okay with the sewer and water. I would feel lucky to have sewer and water in front of my property personally.
It's,
You bet.
Other people say, no, I want my own well, I want my own.
Mhm.
What do these are you getting a sense of, would they appreciate having water and sewer so that they don't have to do tanks and wells?
well, the trick with these particular ones is we're talking to development companies that are looking to place homes on it and then resell it. So I
They're
don't
just
have
out-of-town
the,
investors.
They want a quick turnover.
Would you say?
They're out-of-town investors.
I don't have the feel, and I'm not saying that they could be, you have to, in my mind, look at it as in-town investors too, because it applied to everybody.
Right, I was just saying, at this
Yeah.
point, when you're asking the question, would they like to have it there? When you're talking about places like this that are growing, you always get money. People looking to go places, build spec homes, sell them. And so they're just looking at how much money can they make. You know, they aren't looking at, they're maybe not gonna live there, so those conveniences don't mean as much.
So it's probably just as cheap to pay the hookup fees
It's cheaper
into
than well, is that
municipality
not
and
correct?
never, the liability isn't there.
In the long run, especially.
If
So
the water,
therefore,
and I can,
This could be benefiting the landowner
Oh, yeah.
as
In the
well
long
as
run,
the town.
especially.
Could very
yeah.
well.
Okay,
Typically.
so
And-
that, if it's gonna be a win-win on both sides, then
Do it.
The
Just
only
a
way
good
that
investment.
the only way that it's not a benefit to the landowner is if they're going to be a large water user.
right,
You know, if they're gonna be a desert landscape, like you see most of Appaloosa Meadows has, you know, all rock. You know, you see Molly Ray, most of it's like that. The only place where it's a benefit really for a person to go in and have their own well, as some of the people in Appaloosa Meadows have, is they had to hook up to the water system. But if they wanted to drill, and they had to serve their home with it, but if they wanted to drill a well for irrigation, for outside landscaping and stuff, they could.
okay.
and that's still the case,
Yeah.
unless you're on Prescott Water. There's a special ruling for Prescott Water that if you're on Prescott Water, you have to cap your well if you have one. But that's not the case with Chino Water.
Yeah.
Since we're not an assured provider, that doesn't apply to us.
Well, and the other thing, I'd have to look at it, but it seems like the state changed the ruling on the footage also for a water provider. So if you had a service line within, for some reason I'm thinking 1,000 feet,
660 either side of the line.
is that what it is? And so if the water's there, the water provider has an obligation to hook up to you. And that they then, like I said,
They
I'd have to check.
can.
I could find out tomorrow. But they may not, if you've got a water service line right there next to them, the state may not issue them a well drilling permit.
Yeah, and that's usually my response when someone starts asking about wells. I tell them they need to talk to ADWR
Yeah.
because they regulate the wells.
Right.
So I would leave that in their court as far as the wells go.
Well,
So we
unless
think
you
this
have a
is good-
chance to do
think
something
this is a
like
good
this.
investment to do this?
I think it's a smart
And-
thing for
and-
the town.
Yeah, I think so too.
Maybe one other thing, if I could add a wrinkle to it, I was talking to the attorney. I know that usually gets me in trouble, but that's a joke. But the one thing we could do here is set aside an annual budget for some of these extensions and look at a job order contract for a water and sewer construction company, or a number of them, to where we have an annual budget as these things come up, because they come up quick, so development doesn't want to wait on government. So if we have an annual budget for these and a job order contract set up, we can issue a job order, have the contractor do the design and the construction and get all the ADEQ approvals and run these quick, so we're not holding people up with the development of these. And that, I think that would be a good, almost like an annual program. And if you run out of money, you know, that's where council comes in, is you budget how much money to use for that. And if we start overspending that, that's when we'd have to come back to council.
Yeah, but you could
Or
give
just
semi-annual reports or whatever,
Yeah.
saying here's how, what we're
And
doing.
we could even
and
do quarterly or semi-annual reports of how that,
money's being spent, so that,
Extension funds.
but it's all on like an IOU anyway, so.
Yeah.
and then
Andrew-
council would approve the job order contracts and the budget amount for that.
Mhm.
Is there a boilerplate type design for something like this? Or does each one of these need to be designed independently?
It's gotta be designed independently, stamped by an engineer, and approved by ADEQ. For all sewer and for water, there's some dollar amounts for water. I think it's like 12,000.
I'm just
You can
saying,
just
it
put
seems
it
like
in.
engineering for something so simple when they're basically all the same.
Should be easy engineering,
You
and
would-
that's
you would
where
think so.
you get a job order contractor, he can get it onto the engineering. It should be, you know, like one of these is probably 2 plan sheets.
So our engineering could go out just like we would a contractor for bid for something like this?
Yeah, you could actually, with job order, it's much like design build, to where the contractor can actually have the design as part of his scope and fee and schedule.
We'll just get them to quote us like a price per square foot or something,
Mhm.
so we know.
And then
Yes,
we wouldn't
they-
hold up the developer or
they
the
assume
person
the
wanting to
risk,
put the.
and we've already approved the contract based on the qualifications, and council's approved the payment method is much like force account work,
Mhm.
to where you pay for labor, equipment, and materials in a certain markup. And it's all open book accounting.
Sounds to me like pretty painless for the town as far as.
It'd
going this
be
route.
quicker.
So Andrew says we can do agreements to lien the properties, so when they change hands or when they come in for their permits, we can get our money back.
Yeah.
So we're just basically cash flowing the extensions for whatever time until the properties are developed.
What? Now that kind of scares me.
It's technically
This
not
all
a
of a sudden
lien.
didn't sound so good.
It's a lien, it's a lien. We
You
lien the
missed,
property.
see, you weren't
If-
looking,
if all of a sudden I turn-
your peripheral vision wasn't allowing you to see that sledgehammer that was hanging over your head.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he just dropped it.
Yes.
The last thing I want to do is all of a sudden a piece of property that I have owned free and clear, all of a sudden there's a lien on it.
Well, our attorney says we can do that. We have to notify and do all that.
You can
Yeah, I
do
mean,
that
it's-
you can do that for street improvements too, up to a point.
Mhm.
Um,
I mean, these are people that came in and are doing lot splits, and you know, again, they're right next to our utilities.
I think this horse is dead.
Let's move on.
Okay, well, do you
I'm
feel like
not
you
sure
got
what
good
the
direction?
is.
Yeah,
Direction
I'm.
is do it.
Do it,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
How many times we gotta say that?
Make it happen.
Frank,
We'll see it.
Frank,
Okay.
Good.
You didn't hear me say do it.
I don't care what you say, you're only one vote.
Wait.
He said, I
Well,
said, he
you guys
said,
are making a
that's three.
decision, you're just giving us
He said, that's
direction.
four.
Yeah, it's just direction.
Okay.
Frank
We'll
will bring
move
it back in
forward.
front of
We'll
you.
probably see if we can do a couple. These two we might have to do as individual projects and bring them to council.
Sort of as our test
And while we're developing that, we'll
Job
get with
order
legal
contract.
and develop a job order contract and put that out and bring that to council for approval as well.
With some numbers.
Mhm.
Good.
So,
Oh, can we back up to, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but you said Perkinsville, right? That was
Mhm.
Perkinsville?
Mhm.
That was
And
Smith Court and
They're
Perkinsville
very
Road.
similar.
Together,
Yeah,
so we're going with both of those.
Mhm.
and then he'll bring you a job order or contracting that shows if we want to do it for
Road
others.
Two North we haven't talked about.
No.
Frank's gonna pull that up. You got a picture?
Sorry.
I don't have a
I thought
picture
we
for
were
2
done. I was
North.
ready for page
Okay.
3.
So 2 North is the project that we talked with Andrew about, and he's the one, because we have basically commercial developers wanting to develop all the way up to the school, and the parcel to the south southwest of the school.
Bring up the county map if you want.
Yeah, if you can. The parcel to the southwest of the school, I believe, is a 40-acre parcel, correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, that one of our manufactured home dealers
Clayton's.
is dealing with the property owner to develop, I believe, 120 lots. And they want, of course, water and sewer going up to that property, but it's gonna benefit all the other properties from basically Walgreens up. And you know, we've had proposals for other developments, Brook Apartments and a couple others in there. So Andrew said this is exactly what you can do, is we'd have to front the money for that extension. Of course, that 40-acre parcel, and basically you set up, I'm not gonna say a
Same type
special
of thing,
assessment
but-
district, but you set up an allocation method where you divide the cost based on usually the highest and likeliest use of all the properties going up that road. So, you know, you have something that's gonna be an apartment complex or single-family homes. You split the cost up with a formula, and we actually have an engineering firm that will do that for us. And you base it on what the most likely use of that property is for those utilities going up. And then as they develop, of course, you've leaned the property and it's assessed, and then we get our money back. So it's just cash flowing it. Now, at $1.2 million, seeing how that's a big enough project that we might we might have to go out and borrow money to do it. But we also, like, if Clayton Homes is really hot to trot, they should be putting a significant portion of the money down on that project. So the amount we borrow is gonna be not the full project amount, but a lot less. We haven't run any of the numbers yet. It's just a concept now, but I've seen these type of development districts set up before, and sometimes it might take 10 or 15 years for a development to come in. But the properties are leaned, and eventually the town does receive all of its money back, depending on how it's set up. Some districts are set up that they actually do
So
an
you'll
annual assessment.
bring the whole program to us.
We'll
in the
bring it all
future.
to you, but it's really just the concept of doing it. And this is, let's call this a major sewer and water.
I think it's gonna have to be done somewhere in the future. That's how we do it.
Right.
Where's the Clayton
One
proposed spot?
west and two
South,
north
right
on
there.
the
That
south,
parcel right there.
southwest corner.
The old Curtis Ranch.
Okay.
Curtis Farm.
Has had the sign out there forever.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of commercial zoning on this side, see, right, where, that's all Travis Park, so that's a huge area for a definite kind of little commercial zone, especially when you have Burger King going in, another restaurant there. The Hawk's Nest across the way is a perfect place for some apartments.
Yeah, so
That
you've
whole
got,
area is just
yeah, a couple of
prime.
these. This 90 acres is what we call Hawk's Nest.
Okay.
This is a commercial subdivision. This is was Brook Apartments at one
Right.
time.
Just a quick question, but when you run that line on that lot, the 016 lot, are you gonna be, whoa, you just.
016?
The lot right here, the big lot where Brooks, I think you call it?
Hawk's Nest.
Oh.
North, Hawk Nest,
Hawk Nest.
Oh.
Yeah, the 90 acres.
there. That lot, when you run that line, are you gonna be able to let these businesses along the highway hook in?
One thing we're considering, these two 90-acre parcels, if they develop, the sewer by gravity probably won't be able to serve all of those properties because it's like the Nile River, everything flows north. So if we did that, what we would have to look at is maybe a lift station in this corner and try and get an easement along this property line to pump
I would
back
just-
up to north,
Excuse me.
and that would allow to run a line to connect those business properties.
I was just thinking if that's gonna develop all those lots, you can get up there and get Taylor and Angus and all that stuff too, and while you're up that way.
Well, then you start adding to the cost, and once you get all these properties, you would have to run sewer across Perkinsville.
I like that idea. And water line right with it,
7 figures, and I can do it.
no problem.
If you were to do it,
I'm not saying all right now, I'm talking about, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, that's
Planning for the future,
they.
go ahead.
There's actually previous plans that talk about bringing the sewer up Perkinsville and serving all this, and it didn't pencil at that time.
but your gravity feed then, right?
That was gravity feed.
Yep.
So if you were to go in and do those 290 acres, like you said, and you had to put a lift station down there,
That would be temporary. Yeah.
it would be temporary. Okay.
until we could gravity feed from Perkinsville.
Okay.
It's really, the development will drive it what goes first.
That's just my thing, is that anytime we get into lift stations like that, that they are a temporary for right now to get this thing going, and eventually when the gravity sewer is there, that developer or whoever, it's already in the cards that goes away and they hook into the gravity feed.
That's Joe and I. How many times have I said I from a maintenance point of view, I hate
Oh, yeah.
lift stations.
Yeah, it'll kill you down the road.
It's a purpose for economic development, you can't do it without infrastructure.
So what we
So
would,
that's 1.5 to just take the line up to north to the school, basically.
And that has no street improvements?
yeah, we're working on trying to get a good cost estimate on that.
No street improvements yet on this? No
I
widening?
think the
They'll have
cost estimate would include street improvements, so I hate to throw out numbers
So that's
just yet.
1.8.
Yeah, but you figure in a year, you're not gonna be able to probably spend 1.5 million. I mean,
I can.
Yeah. Well, it'd be, one,
It's-
we just need to develop, get all the
Yeah.
numbers, do
Yeah.
the allocation.
And then figure out how we want to, if we could even look at phasing and
Yeah.
things like that. And another thing I know at the utility committee, we've talked about this, a future benefit, going back to that the water fill station. Eventually, right here at Sycamore Vista and Road 2 North, that's a town well site. I think it's a small well, but if we eventually get out there, to me, that's an ideal location for a water fill station.
There's also a storage tank I think it's on Fire Sky. 60,000 gallon storage tank underground.
For private?
No, it's fire.
Oh, fire?
oh,
So is Clayton, how far along is Clayton? Is he serious on that property?
Right. They come
You're
in doing due diligence to
it's hard to know.
talk
They
about what
haven't pulled-
requirements are, but there is
They've been
no,
talking to me for about 6 months
there's no application in, so.
about doing their garages
You know,
and stuff.
I have heard projects come and go on both of them big properties,
Yep.
and now on this one. So until someone's ready to show me the money, I would have a hard time spending anything going out there at this point.
It's
Yeah,
more
we're-
beneficial for commercial than it is residential, though.
But we still need a plan.
Commercially wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
think
don't
you need to
think
know the
maybe
cost.
that might enhance
Let's
some
start
of
doing
it?
Exactly.
some
See, I think it's a
planning and
cart
see
before
what
the
it
horse,
costs
otherwise
and
they're
what
not
we're
gonna
going
invest
on.
unless they know they have
Just like
infrastructure.
getting water and sewer up the highway, you know.
But if they knew we were willing
I
to
agree
make
with
that
that.
extension,
Would
upfront the cost, that might make it
Would that change the equation?
go. Change the equation.
Mhm.
Well, I agree with Corey. They have to be significantly invested and, committed to doing the project before we go out and spend public money to run pipes to nowhere.
Yep.
But we should have a plan in case that happens, we can do it and not take 2 years to do it.
Well, in talking to other economic developer people that I've been learning about, all of them say to me, if you don't have that infrastructure there, they are not going to come. So if you put that there, and then there's that land there and a school, it's a matter of time where someone comes in. If it's not Clayton Homes, it's another person. Maybe a site is stick built, but if it's not there, it's not gonna come. It has to be there for it to come.
But if we scope out the project, we get good cost estimates, we come up with our allocation method.
Right.
And
And
then we
we're gonna
know,
get
let's
paid
say
back.
Clayton is $250,000 of that number. If they show up and write us a check for $250,000.
Then maybe we move
then we
ahead.
get a check.
And maybe we
Then
move
get
ahead,
one.
yes.
Yeah, but that's where we need to be ready to say, this
Yep.
is what
Or
it
Hawks
costs.
Nest or whoever.
Right.
Well,
exactly.
They're Berkshire Hathaway company, they have money,
Yes.
so.
Is there any cost difference between 2 North and Perkinsville? Construction wise?
So you're going
Listen,
under the
maybe a lot
highway, aren't
Bigger
you?
bang for your buck if you go on further north downhill.
But aren't you having to go underneath the highway on?
Yeah.
We're already under the highway for 2 North. What was that, about $300,000, I think,
Oh, I
just
think
to
it's
get under the
half
highway?
a million at least, yeah.
For each,
Yeah.
so,
I think that's always been kind of the roadblock for Perkinsville is the highway.
yeah, and plus, the reason I would say we were looking at just 2 North for now was because of these
Yeah,
developments coming in. When you start, it's always good to try and get all of this on water and sewer at some point from an environmental standpoint at the very least. But it's just a question of how much it costs, and then you're assessing existing properties or something like that. So it's a lot more difficult with established properties as far as the process goes. I
Those
would
are 1
think.
acre pieces, right?
Check with,
So,
And catching all those up there,
But it's-
what's your hookup rate gonna be, cause it's not mandatory for them to hook up?
right.
Well, that'd
You know,
be,
like we said, so
Mhm.
Yeah,
what's your chances of getting your money back? 50%, 20%?
Well, less
I
than
don't know.
50.
you'd have to have
Yeah.
all-
Center Street, we weren't that
Agreed.
successful.
And if it's already there, then if they do something, which I think what's holding back this town, which I'm not complaining about, but what holding back this town is there's no infrastructure.
it's true.
In the story.
Exactly.
Not the highway growth, the houses, all of it.
Maybe we should change our hookup policies back to where they were before.
We're gonna fight on
Look
that.
Or
at
maybe
it.
we just focus
Sure.
on like a commercial corridor like 2 North and use that kind of as an experiment. That's where we've had most of the discussion for commercial development and see if it really does. If
And
it
they're
happens,
talking
will it happen? you know?
Developing both north and south of Tudor.
Yeah.
but they've been like,
Right now, we're looking,
Councilmember
this
Mendoza said
piece
they've been
here
talking
is all
about
for
I'm
the
just saying,
west
but there's
side.
been talk about both sides.
Oh,
Right?
yes, both north and south of 2 North,
Yep.
yes, but on the
So Mayor,
west
when
side.
you talk about getting something, a step, moving that direction, what does that mean? What are you talking
A
about?
plan. If we do this, here's what it costs, here's how long it will take, here's what we'll have to do. If somebody
How much
comes in
money-
quickly,
How much money to make a plan?
well, that's the question.
so
We don't know that yet.
we can get those numbers.
Yeah, we'll put it
Let's
together.
start with the
Yeah, we're
budget
just kind of
for plan.
flat-footed right now.
Yeah, it's not, so we're just looking at the concept. So what I'm hearing is, you're sort of saying, we're ready, do we invest $1.5 million on 2 North?
No.
And if so, what will that involve?
I would say if you make a plan and we'll find out just really what's it gonna
What's
cost
the
to
real
do that.
cost?
The
Is
real cost
And
and what it's gonna
then,
take.
and then it stays dormant until one of those big ones actually come to the table with some money. And then if we could get, someone that's gonna at least
Write a check for
get,
$250,000.
get at least a quarter of it paid for,
Yeah.
then it would be more appealing, is
So
that?
having that sitting on the shelf and Maggie being able to tell a developer, you need water and sewer, it's $250,000 and we'll
Mhm.
get it to you, gives her a great tool.
She has
in her
nothing to work
toolkit.
with right now.
Then she can go, yeah, we could have this done in,
X
you know,
days.
Mhm.
18
Right.
months or whatever.
And Jack's
So-
right, that's what's stopping
That's
us
what
now.
we're trying.
We don't have
Mhm.
infrastructure.
We don't have it, that's why I
And-
said, we're
and all of-
flat-footed.
And that plan also better include widening that road and making all those concessions happen,
Sidewalks.
okay? Because people are,
multi-use path.
people are already whining about the fact that if you put an apartment complex in there, it's going to,
Yeah.
bog the intersection, so.
Sorry, Mandy, what did you say?
She said sidewalk.
Oh,
Sorry,
yes.
knows that.
So-
Multi-use
You might
path.
think about moving the filling station while you're doing that.
Well, that's why I brought that up,
Yeah.
moving it out that way, because all the water users are out west, so in my mind, the further west we get it, not all of them, but a majority are out west.
So let's,
Main conjunction
You can
down
get a
there.
nice development in there and make it look nice and have sidewalks and everything, it's a testing point, it makes
Yeah,
that
so-
area that's kind of the center of town a focal point, and then you
Yeah.
can go off of that.
So what I'm hearing is we'll at least get maybe a cost to figure out the cost,
yes,
to get a good design concept estimate.
Well,
And then kind of stop there until we get some real skin in.
to be opposed to both
Probably.
Lonnie and Corey, I would be more for doing it.
You're for going ahead with the
I'd
whole
say
thing. So-
get
But
an
I think
idea
we
of the
still need a
cost for
price.
that,
We
and
need a
yes,
price,
bring
we need an
that,
idea
and
of the
let's
cost, and then let's
continue the
bring it back.
discussion.
Let's
Okay.
bring it back to the study session
Yes.
So
and
get,
take a look at
Get
it.
the who, what, when.
Yep.
It's a
Maybe
good project.
between now
so
and
you're,
then we'll
o-
get some more.
so you're okay with making the citizens of Chino Valley pay for infrastructure to nowhere with no commitment?
It's not going to nowhere, it's going
Yeah,
to
it is.
school, it's going to school, if nothing else.
The school's doing fine without it.
Okay. You still polluting the ground.
You're still
With sewer.
you're polluting the ground?
Yes, sir.
Really?
that's,
Really?
you are adding nitrates,
Oh, really? Oh,
so
And how big is that leach line out there by the school, and what's the
Well-
next closest thing to it?
I'm just.
No, you aren't polluting the ground.
Okay.
It's a septic system that's been here for
We
hundreds
can
of years.
discuss this for hours. Let's
So shall we
plan,
go on to
let's get a
page
plan
three?
and see
It's-
what it costs.
You know,
to
let's
bring
be
it back.
realistic and not just shovel shit, okay, if we're gonna talk about it.
So,
Well, it is, it's BS. You're talking BS.
Okay. In your opinion, that's fine.
No.
So within this price that's gonna get developed, if we're gonna do the roadway as well, then this is 1.2 was for water and sewer.
well, what I want to do
Let's
is
get some
So-
alternates,
so if
with
we're
or
gonna-
without the roadway, with or without, so we can take a
So we need
honest
some
look at it.
with and without roadway, just exactly what are we talking about?
That's why
So-
you're not hearing those numbers out of me right now,
Mhm.
because I don't want to say them. I want to go back and get a good
This is
design
a swag.
concept estimate that breaks out the water, the sewer, the streets.
Can you
And
be ready for the next month?
no,
Well, we can't have one in August because
I
of
know
the
you
League of
can't.
Cities, but
I don't even think September. Just
Yeah,
when we get it, we'll bring
yeah,
it back.
I think November, December, maybe.
well, I think we should have a reasonable time frame instead of just saying when you
Let's-
get it.
let-
Yeah, but I have to talk to our on-calls and see availability and
Mhm.
scope and fee and schedule.
How about November as a target date?
You don't want to commit to that.
I don't want to commit because I haven't talked to the
November's the
person.
target date, see
Well,
where you can do
And
it.
let's talk about the scope of how much we need
Yeah.
to come back with.
So we don't wanna
we'll
wait
see what
next
we
year.
can
if we
come-
can
Yeah.
At least get an idea of where we are.
And we'll do some out. Yeah.
And
Okay.
it-
Good, you're right.
if we could get that in a per foot, say, off of the highway working that direction. You know, again, so if it just encompasses to, well, we're already to the back of Walgreens, or we come up to our next third, you know, or on the way over to one west, or
It'd be
one
nice if
more,
they develop incrementally like that.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So if we can do that, you know, a phase, you know, almost like 3 phases out from the highway,
Yeah, well,
But it might not develop like that. I mean,
it may not, because if
I mean,
Clayton.
you're saying that it's all gonna happen
But if Clayton comes all the
linearly.
way to the third section off of the highway, well, then we hold him up to say, well, we can't do this until we can do the whole road all the way out to the highway? If streets and sidewalks are gonna be part of this?
that's what we're saying, then we would assess the other properties for their proportionate share. But get them on water and sewer. There's no way they can have the densities they're asking for without water and sewer. Not on 40 acres.
So your thing is kind of an all or nothing kind of.
I'm saying we need to get the cost. I can't see that we would do like the first third if there's still nothing there.
Okay, you know what you need to do.
We got good.
Yeah,
direction.
we'll
Okay,
have
let's
more
move on to the
discussion.
next page.
Okay, so page 3. This is the capital improvement fund. And so this fund gets 1% of the town sales tax. And we use it to pay our debt service and do various capital projects that, throughout the years. We also run a couple little things like the drainage district and stuff through it. So really, this is where the money's accounted for major general fund projects. And these are the big guys. So, what I did here is everything in white is what we planned. We planned on a $250,000 for the Old Home Manor master plan. That money can be used in anything, it can be used whatever you guys want, but generally it's to move the Old Home Manor development forward. Down on the bottom, we had 80 for an old One North signal, may or may not use. We have the Rural Economic Development Grant, which is really the EPEA grant. 100,000 to pay Jerome Junction, and then the 200,000 that we're committed to match the CDBG paving project, and that's gonna be a little bit less than 200,000, but right about there. So the other blue items that we put in, one is we've talked about maybe paying off that second line of credit, the lease purchase credit. We have 3 years left. We borrowed $825,000. We owe about $500,000 right now. So it would use about $380,000 of cash out of this fund, and we've already budgeted for the cash out of the rest of the funds to make up the difference between 380 to 503. So essentially, it's probably really about a $380,000 hit to this fund. That would save us, I believe, around $16,000 in interest over the next 3 years if we did that, if we just used the cash to pay off that loan. The other thing is we're talking about doing a design. The idea at Old Home Manor was basically to develop 3, 4, 5 lots, so we could get them, get the road in, get the sidewalks, get the water and sewer to them, make a little cul-de-sac, or however that comes about. We need to start the design process. So we threw 100 at it, thinking it'd be designed this year, 500,000 to do water and sewer line construction, and these are just Joe's numbers. Frank and I just threw numbers at it.
They're not mine.
And then because his are always more. And then 300,000 for a spec building. Just throwing the concept of do we design an area out there so we can build lots, get them ready to build on. That's the concept we're talking about with the council.
Joe, real quick on that $300,000, how big a building were you thinking?
We're just on the idea of a building, a spec building.
Okay.
Just trying
There-
to reserve some money.
Not very.
Okay.
It wouldn't be very big.
Not 300,000.
That's what I was asking.
It's 2 years out,
Something
so.
out there.
Because we were 500,000 for a 40 by 80.
Yeah.
With the bathroom.
If we don't do
With the bathroom,
anything,
with Jack's bathroom.
if we don't do anything but roads, get it blocked off and it looks like something rather than dirt,
That's the concept we want you guys to
and
talk
see how far we can get with the money we have.
It's just a concept. The other thing is, we've talked about a police department, and if we do that, I've actually looked at, and we found a couple police departments that have been built, one in Colorado, one in Arizona, one in El Mirage. It was 400 and something a square foot, but man, it's nice. We're not gonna build Chuck a nice police department like that. He does not deserve it. So
That
Chuck-
should be
How about a Quonset hut?
So we're
Would that-
hoping we
would
can,
that work?
but I
They're
think.
nice.
Yeah.
He just wants more bathrooms.
You just want something dry would be good.
Outhouse up back.
No, we got it.
But I think if we budget for around 400 a square foot, it seems like that's where, we should be able to do it for that. You never know. But the idea is, the concept we want to throw out here is, do we proceed with designing, and we'll probably do it design build, might be the best way to do it. Do we start moving towards building a police department for Chino Valley? On $4.5 million, the annual payment, we'll probably do a 25-year bond on it. This is when you borrow money to do these long projects. You build a police department, it's gonna last 50 or 75 years. You borrow the money for the first 25. That's how most communities finance these big projects. And so, Mayor and Council, is this something you wanna move forward on? The payment on about 4.5 is gonna be around $400,000 a year. Chino Valley can't afford that. We can do it, but we know we have the need for the facility. That's a given. It's, do we want to address it now? Do we want to start it? And so these are just, the blue things are the things that we've heard council members talk about individually and just around. So at this point, we just want to throw it out. You have $2 million sitting in the bank that we can get going on some of these things. We can pay for the design of the police department now. We can pay for the design and even some of the work if we get it done this fiscal year out of Old Home Manor. Or we can do other capital projects that you guys so desire. So this is where staff is just asking you to talk and maybe prioritize or decide how we want to do it. This $2 million is really sort of a one-time shot in the arm. It's that extra $500,000 that we roll over every year that has overfunded our reserves. We do need to spend the money. It's public money we've collected to do public things with, for the community. So at this point, I think you have, for the first time since I've been here, you have the opportunity to do some really good projects. And, instead of being able to do nothing. So.
You want to take some time to look at this and come back to the next study session and really walk through it and see
And then if you have additional items, you
if
might
you have
want to.
additional items or you
speak
want to
about.
I have a couple of questions. Up to the lease purchase debt, you said it'll save us about $16,000 a year in interest
It'll save us 16,000 over the next 3 years.
over the next 3 years.
Yeah.
And if it's just paid out, how many years will we be? Is it a 3-year note? Is that
It's
what's
actually
left?
5 years. We got three years
Left on it.
left on. We have 13 payments
Okay.
left.
All right.
13 quarterly payments left.
Does that sound logical?
So
Well, I don't know, that's just one of the things I'll, like you said, I'd go home and look at it, but I mean.
Yeah, go home, look at it, and if you got
That's in
questions,
there.
get the
So,
questions.
So I want, can I mention
And
the
we'll talk
water
about it
credits?
next study session.
Can I mention the water credits? Because I think we actually have a couple options there. I was talking with Bill Stodmeyer the other day. And these were presented to him. I sent it out in the weekly update to you about the, what is it, 20 acre feet of assured water supplies that we can buy at $200 an acre foot, and we sell, our price is
20,000 an acre foot.
20,000, I'm sorry, an acre foot, and our price is 25. So we can either do it where we purchase it for 400,000 and sell it to Mike Fan or whoever for 500,000, or Bill can broker this with us and just sell it directly to Mike Fan, and it helps us satisfy our obligation for Bright Star, the water credit that we have to owe him. So either way, it's a win-win. Either we front the money and maybe we'll make, you know, part of that 100,000 back, or we cannot use it for Mike Fan. We can use it for other water projects that could happen.
I'm sorry, but what are the water credits? What is the water credit?
These are portable water credits that
Paper water.
paper water
Is
that.
it recharge credit? Is that what
No, it's
No.
nothing from here.
This
It's
is-
an attorney down in Phoenix who
This
says,
is
"Hey,
something
I
we
have
could
some."
offer a developer.
Yeah.
Somebody
it's
They
sa-
come in and they
somebody
don't have
saves
their own
money.
water.
Yeah.
and
So
they-
somebody
they can
has
sell
water
those
somewhere?
credits.
For sale.
Yes, they have water for sale. That's portable.
Yeah.
So it would go into our water portfolio, of which we have no water. So
Which
then,
we don't have a water portfolio, right? Because we're not a provider?
well, and then we just don't have much there. That's why we're
I-
trying to
I'm-
get
see,
whatever
this
we
is where I
can.
get really confused.
and
We talked
extinguishment
about this a lot
credits.
in utilities, but it's so confusing.
It is confusing.
These are, if I could maybe, these water credits are the water rights, the legal
Mhm.
authority, like the historically irrigated grandfather rights that CVID
So they're
brokered
transferable.
with Prescott.
So yes, a developer comes in, and you know, any project, you have to bring your own water.
And that goes into the
So-
100-year guaranteed water supply thing?
Yeah, so we say, you don't have water, well, we have some water we can sell you for your project. And so it does, it makes development a little
Yeah.
easier from a
One-
commercial standpoint.
So
but-
we're obligated to
Right.
Mike right now.
Right.
So this would then satisfy that obligation.
I don't know if this completely satisfies it, but we're also working on the other part with the recharge credits, but I think this makes a big dent. I can't remember, do you remember how much we owe, Mike? Exactly.
43 maybe?
That's what
Yeah,
I was
I was
thinking.
thinking it's right over,
43.
yeah.
So,
That was like 43.5.
So I guess the-
43 acre feet you're talking?
43 water credits at
40,
25,000.
okay.
You're dealing with a 100-year supply, so you multiply everything by 100,
Mhm.
so the question in my mind there is I have no doubt that it's a good deal for us to do this. Okay, I think it's a no-brainer to do it. The question is then what do we do with it? Do we directly take it to Mike Fan, or do we hold it and just continue on down the road with Mike Fan the way we've planned and hold these for
Mhm. For like
a
that
card?
sweet
you know?
project that you
Yes,
want, yeah.
yes,
That is a decision.
yeah.
You can use it either way.
Would that be something to motivate Mike to go ahead and do his project?
No, I think he's already going ahead and doing this project.
Is that already
I
under-
felt that's what he committed to us that day he was
He's
here.
committed already.
And that's why we're going ahead with some of the stuff that we're doing for
And
this
that's-
whole water portfolio that Mark's working on, the
That's what the
PAD.
water study, the well study. would-
between that and the PAD, what's that
Physical
stand for?
availability
Thank you.
determination.
And then, yeah, and getting the ruling with ADWR for the recharge and.
One more time, just this, we're gonna spend 400,000 for this, but it's worth 500,000? Is that
Well,
what you're
right
saying?
now, we already have a price on our fee schedule for an acre foot, and it's 25,000. And the person that contacted Bill Stodmeyer was willing to sell it to him for 20,000. So yes, there's attorney fees in
So it's already
there.
got a profit.
Yeah, it's already got a
Yeah,
built-in
like you
profit.
The
said.
attorney
no
will get a
brainer.
portion of it.
Yeah.
They'll get their commission.
We
Yeah,
can't
he's
vote
not
on them,
just
but I
gonna
say
do the
yes.
good guy thing, just do it for us.
He's
In Arizona, you get
If it
water.
doesn't work with them, we can still sell that to other people.
Absolutely, yes.
It's something that we have in
Yes.
hold.
It's a commodity.
It's valuable.
Yeah.
I don't know why we wouldn't, but that's not my decision.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know why we
This still doesn't make us a water provider though.
No.
Oh, no. You
Are
need
we
a lot
ever
more
gonna be
water.
a water
No.
provider, ever?
Not unless we can import from outside the AMA.
So if we brought the line from the ranch to here,
Yes.
Yes.
and that would
Maybe.
get us out of Prescott, that's why we can't be a water provider now, because of Prescott?
Because Prescott has most of the water here, so we will never be, based on the water
Okay.
underneath us.
It's starting to get a little more.
The physical availability of the
Yeah.
water.
Yeah,
Yep.
has to be, physically available for 100 years, blah, 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 blah. And they've gotten that. That's the only way they were able to become an assured water provider, was taking the water from Chino Valley.
I doubt that anyone thinks that that water price is gonna go down.
Yeah, we said it years and years ago, and
No way will it go down.
So
Yeah.
I would think.
and
if
we did it with the understanding that if we were able to wheel water in from there, that we would have that commodity to sell. And so we
Actually,
set the
there's a price for that too.
Oh, isn't that 45,000?
It's 45 if you're importing,
Yeah. Okay.
set by ordinance.
So
I
therefore,
think.
somebody has approached us for, I'm selling this, so
Yeah, it's-
this might be something that we then want to take advantage of.
If I might say, the town has sold water in the past. Colonial Villas is an example that when that subdivision was developed, there was 10 acre feet for a 100-year supply that was sold with that development from the town for $250,000.
Yeah, and that one.
And that's how that certificate of water supply for that development was achieved.
Well, I would rather see some water in the bank versus some drawings on a shelf, as far as where we spend this money, so. I'd like to look more into buying the water.
So Bill is looking into that for us and trying to make sure that everything's
It'll have to come back to
kosher.
the council, so
Mhm.
let's proceed and see where it goes, and
Okay.
see what it costs. Okay.
And
It makes me sick because I retired from irrigation district and we were buying paper water for $200 an acre foot. And what's that up here? Crazy amount.
So you're saying you should have bought some more?
Yeah, I should have bought.
that's about what we're
Yeah, because
buying it for.
20,000. I mean, like you said,
What
you
you're
gotta.
buying for it now, but
But I don't know if we really got closure about the police department, and, in my opinion, this is something that's been on the back shelf probably the whole time I've worked here, as far as, them needing a bigger building. Never have we had permission really to pull the triggers. No pun intended.
So on this page, the ones that are not highlighted in blue, those are things that
We've
are
already put in the
already
budget.
budgeted for, so that they're already done. We're just contemplating whether we want to spend part of this 2 million on the ones that are highlighted in blue.
Correct.
Right.
Okay. And that's where it's coming back next time, correct, Mayor?
yes.
Come back and
Can I maybe just say one thing quick about the master plan? It's not one of the blue ones, but that's what the utility committee discussed. It's an,
Well, we discussed it at the retreat too, when Mark was
okay,
here.
Yeah, we
so
did.
we'll be bringing that to the next meeting as a report. And so we'll talk about it
Yeah,
then.
we need to know how much water we have. Kind of important. Okay, the police department design.
We were talking about what we were just talking about.
What are your
Talked to you
thoughts?
about when it has to do with Bright Star and the obligation.
The what?
to develop it.
As far as, you mean spending $350,000 for the design of the police department?
Yeah.
Oh, we're still discussing that one.
I thought we were going on.
Yeah, I-
Basic question, are there any facilities that the town owns that could be adapted?
We have property back here. We can put a police department.
So, are you gonna totally abandon the building you're in now?
What we discussed is gutting it, and then we can either go like development services and public works are combined, step on each other. So they would have the opportunity to go, it needs to be gutted. It needs- Basically, if there's
This
no
would help
interior
also
load bearing walls,
satisfy
you
if
just
we
come in and make it a
needed,
full roof.
like, oh, we can't quite get there, so we'll have to give him
Build
some
a house
water,
like-
paper water.
Versus having two
Satisfy
stations?
the
Yeah, I don't
They've
really, I mean, I
got-
wanna get out of the residential
Can't remember
neighborhood.
how many
It's
houses,
just
but Bryce
a
has
little
got
more
the next
development.
phase that
It's
he's
just,
in,
you guys are trying to get out
he
and
wants to
call
develop it and get it
planes.
done. He's like, I can't, you guys have to help me with the
It's not center
water.
of town, so it's not the most ideal.
At the time, it was created
location
because
where
we had
this
so much
property would be.
problems with, like, who's
And
how we
and on
use
the
water
highways.
most efficiently.
When we had the fire station next door,
Even
this
Colonial
was a
Villas, like he
popular
was
place.
talking
you
about.
know.
But I think the
Right.
town would retain that building and use it for something.
Is that somewhat of the concept that we
That's
use
part of why we
the land
did this
here?
development there on
It
Wendy's,
would make
so
the
they're
most
just
sense.
working on it.
It was a one-time.
That was why it was purchased.
Oh,
Consolidation
low
of
water.
management.
There was at one time a plan to consolidate everything here.
Somewhat
Yeah.
of a drawing actually of all of
Yeah.
the town buildings here on this
Yeah,
property.
this is gonna be the center.
I
Well,
always
and,
wondered
and
how the town got split, you know, and I'm sure there's a long story, I don't.
There's a long story,
We don't
yeah.
wanna- we
well,
don't-
no, it's really a pretty short story.
Yeah,
The town put in to buy the 50 acres next door to the senior center. The state took, because that used to be part of my lease. I had a 420 acre lease behind the fire department and school, and it became a 370 because the town asked for it. The state put it up for sale, and the town was all ready to buy it. That's where they were going to build the community center and everything. And Mr. Becker from Phoenix came up and outbid the town and bought that 50 acres.
Well, part of it was Yavapai College wanted to expand out there, but they didn't want, this building was vacant, and they didn't want to pay any cash. So they, at that time, we were looking to expand, and we looked at some options up on that campus, the Head Start building, which probably was a mistake not to have bought that instead. And no cash was exchanged. We got this building. They got an additional 20 acres out there for Yavapai College, but it bifurcated our campus, and it's not very efficient. Frank probably runs down here twice a day
Well,
for
they
meetings
looked at a
and.
lot of uses for this building, but the problem is it was right during the recession, so the police department, we could have taken it, but the problem is at the time we had dispatch, and it was gonna be about $75,000 just to relocate communications, and the town didn't have the cash, so it ended up becoming town hall.
Yeah.
Oh, PD was gonna come.
We looked at it.
We looked
When
at
we
it,
got the
yeah.
cost
Look at
estimates
that.
on communications and stuff, we just didn't have the cash to do it.
And we looked at just moving the chamber down here and leasing it to them. And the financing we got was, I can't remember the name of it, but there's a weird stipulation that Michael Cafiso stepped in and said, you can't do that. It has to, so.
On your lease, you still have the lease west of the fire department, right? Now, who owns that? Is that Decker guy own that too?
Becker.
The 50 acres?
Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever you got your cows on.
Oh, no, that's the state. That's state.
That's what I thought.
It was 420 acres of state land. The town asked the state
For the
to,
chunk south of.
for the 50 acres south of, yeah, to put it up for sale because the town wanted to buy it,
Right.
thinking they were a shoe-in, they'd just buy it. And the realtor, Mr. Becker from Phoenix, came up and put his hand up one more time, then the town had money for it. And Ron, was it? No, what was Roger's last name?
No, it was,
I mean, I
God,
thought
we still get
I
mail
thought
in
there was
his
going to be a
name.
homicide right there on the property. Yeah, he worked for the town, and I
Roger
mean, I thought
Paul?
he was, yeah, Roger Paul. That's right,
Oh, Roger Paul.
Roger Paul.
I
He
remember
was. I think his straw hat caught on fire.
So
Yeah.
we actually
Becker's not
called
that
Mr.
easy to
Becker.
work with.
And what we were thinking of is, we talked to him about buying the piece from Perkinsville. If you can zoom in just a little bit more, Frank.
Is that the 50 acres?
Yeah. But we were gonna just sort of
Not
square
the whole
off,
50 acres.
square
but-
off that parcel and buy the stuff behind the ACO officer and behind the senior center, so that you can bring Perkinsville Road around the senior center and then just have it tie into Boss Way. And he's
not that easy to work with.
Very nice. He was sort
No.
of rude.
And he
tell you
keeps
the
saying,
truth.
when are you guys ever going to bring water and sewer up to our parcel?
Yeah,
And
so it's gonna be a condemnation if we ever decide to get a piece of that for the senior center, or, you know, if we ever decide to move that direction, so.
So the initial, the long-range plan is to have the whole entire town here.
like administrative offices.
Here.
Well, that's what it was originally, was all the administrative offices here.
So now what we're talking about is move the police department here.
The
remodel the
administrative
police
offices up
department,
there.
Move development services into that building. Remodel development services, move town hall, town clerk, HR into that, finance. Just an idea, Mr. Mayor, I see you shaking your head. And
Well, you
then-
won't be mayor forever.
And then
so-
one of the, so
But
these
the
are just
idea
ideas.
isn't gonna happen.
And then have the court and prosecutor move here, because this would be a decent courtroom and it wouldn't be hard to get the security that they want for it, front counter. From like finance and our side, being over on that campus would be very advantageous to us. Would just help with our efficiency, because we're back and forth all the time, and you go over there for an hour meeting, you're over there for 3 hours just because you get caught, you know.
So you're looking at almost $5 million for the police station.
Yeah, because we're gonna put probably,
Does that include the remodels down there? No.
not yet, no, we haven't thrown numbers at that, but
That's a
they're
hell
gonna
of
be
a building.
significant.
You can
Yeah.
double and triple.
But you're gonna remodel them for the next one time for the next 30, 40 years probably, so.
If you use that same number, of the 450 a square feet you was talking about, that means at Old Home Manor, you can build 660 square feet for your $350 or $300,000.
No, shell buildings are much cheaper.
Yeah.
When you're talking a shell building, including the parking lot and site design, you're probably looking at 120 a square foot for the that doesn't include the tenant improvements,
Yeah.
but just for the shell.
Yeah, and I was looking at very
And the
big,
site prep.
brand new 50,000 square foot police departments.
Well, how many square foot?
Like 50, big. They were big. Well, one
Well,
was two cities in
If you're,
Colorado.
if you're looking at 4.5 at 450,
I think that was a 10,000.
it's a 10,000
Yeah,
square
10,000.
foot.
No, he was comparing, he meant, not
Yeah.
looking at us building a 50,000.
Well,
Yeah. So
4.5
10,000
million would get you 10,000 square foot.
at 450, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Ready to move on?
Yep.
Okay, let's move on. Number 3.
Real quick, is Old Home Manor at all a possibility for a police station?
I mean, it's possible, but the problem is it's keeping us off the highway and out of the center of town, and then we're gonna be screaming up and down for.
Proximity.
Okay.
Response
That was
time.
the
Would they be-
location.
Wouldn't you use 4 North rather than Perkins?
Depending on what side you built
Ooh,
from, you could use it.
I don't know, not till Fort
But the
North is not
response-
straightened out.
Solid legs in it, it would be-
Response time would be.
5
Yeah,
million.
response time
To
would be.
the south end of town.
Okay.
This is ideal. Like,
This
when we
is
built,
ideal.
Ideal, yeah.
and Lonnie can testify to this, but when we put that trailer, the mobile behind this station, they took all the calls in town. You know, station 1 at the time, we're on 3
61.
North, it cut its calls by probably 75%.
Yeah, this would be the best
And
place.
it's
for it.
downhill, which is nice from here every direction.
I could straighten out 4 North for that 4.5 million. Pretty close. That's realistically what I would do.
Put a 4-lane highway in there?
Okay, let's move on to the next one. Review and discussion regarding draft text amending the Town of Chino Valley Modified Development Ordinance by amending Section 3 by adding Section
What do you feel like?
3.19.
Did you feel like you
This
got
is
direction?
Norma. How are you gonna do?
Kinda what I felt.
Oh, no, I'm gonna take this over to Alex.
Hey, Frank, why don't you just slide it over and I'll move over there?
Wherever you want.
See you later. Thanks, Chuck.
Take a break.
Thank you.
You would drop them available.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so today's presentation is just a follow-up to last time that we discussed this during the study session. And basically, we're only going to be focusing on 3 items, which were questions or revisions that council members requested. First one was the modifications to the business park's purpose statement. Last time, staff presented examples of different municipalities and the purpose statement and the way that they structured the purpose statement. And then clarification on excessive water usage and excessive particles of other pollution, which is within our prohibited uses. There's 2 uses that are prohibited, and it uses that these terms of excessive water and excessive pollutants. So we reached out, or staff reached out to Mark Holmes as far as the water usage, and Frank Mulberry, Development Service Director, or Public Works Director, is going to fill in the gaps for that one. So, as far as the purpose statement, that the previous one was completely scratched, and we came up with a new one. And basically, what we wanted to focus within the purpose statement is right off the bat, let property owners know that the business park is going to be a little bit different than all other zoning districts, especially for the development standards. That within the business park, town is going to be requesting a higher quality of development standards. So basically, this is what we came up with. And the purpose of the business park district is to provide an attractive, high-quality business park, primarily for office, administrative, medical research industries, and light manufacturing in an attractive setting. The regulations of the development standards contained within the district include generous screening, quality landscape and buffering, agriculture performance standards to ensure that capability with surrounding zoning districts. So this is what we came up with.
Questions? Comments?
It's a great purpose statement.
Not yet.
Okay, let's move on to the next item.
Wait, not yet, what does that mean? Not yet, it's not ready, or not
No,
yet, you're not
it's-
ready to comment?
Not ready to comment.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on next one. Next item.
So basically, right here, and Frankie can fill in the gaps. The first paragraph, well, these are examples that Mark Holmes gave us based on usage and the usage of these buildings or uses as far as the gallons per square footage per day is what the first paragraph is talking about. Second paragraph is just considerations that staff should look at, or extra language that should be added within the draft.
Yeah, what we're looking at is Mark said typically when you're on sewer, you collect about 60 to 70% of that water. The other typically goes to irrigation and that sort of thing. So when you see your water meter run, the sewer is getting about 60 to 70% of that. So what I did is looked at some of the uses, and the highest water usage is inpatient healthcare at 50 gallons per square foot. The average for large buildings is about 20 gallons per square foot. And I threw in some numbers like schools are a little bit lower than that. And I wanted to point out that lodging, which I think is a use here, is 42 gallons a square foot. So it's a pretty heavy user. But if that's a use you want to have, you still are getting 60 to 70% of that or more, depending on how they landscape.
See, and that's what I was just gonna say. I think when you look at that the higher the usage per square foot, the higher your percentage of what goes to recharge. Because the landscaping is the same.
So,
You know, on any given size building, you know, per how it gets laid out and what the design is. So when you say that just like lodging and care facilities, more of that water is going to recharge.
yeah.
So it's not as, I guess, I wouldn't want to have that scare us.
Well, and I
Okay,
think that's why he said
That's where I looked
net
at the
amount.
second paragraph.
Yeah.
I said maybe we look at it as a net usage, that you subtract out the recharge you get and only look at the net usage that you don't recover to be excessive, and determine a number off that. If it's, say, at 20 gallons per square foot for the average, you're treating through the sewer plant, 12 gallons of that, so you're only losing 8. So, you know, so say a heavy water user may say you don't want someone to lose more than 8 gallons per square foot in their usage or something like that.
Where does that 8 gallons go? Is that what's used on landscaping?
Landscape.
Typically
that's-
landscaping and things.
So wouldn't, like you said, if it's the same, wouldn't it be 8 gallons for every building or every?
Well, that's what I'm getting at. I think if you really look at it, you know, if you've got X building used for office space, and you take X building for healthcare, the water used on landscape is going to be the same on both of them.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
And so the bigger user is going to put more back to recharge in most cases, I think.
Then just to help me understand this, why do we not want a higher use?
You don't want a higher use that waste. So we had some examples of,
Bottling plant is a good example.
Yep.
Because it goes
Chip
out.
manufacturer.
Right.
But they're talking about chip manufacturers. Don't they use that in their production and it goes right back?
That's actually the next slide.
Okay. I'm just trying, because it seemed to me like the more water they use in a roundabout way, the more money the town can make because they're purchasing their water from the town, right? And then it comes back in the sewer, so
But there's still only so much water.
because it would be committed to this, so that takes it out of our portfolio that we don't have.
Joe's actually pointing it out where it actually is in a prohibited use item number 13, which is on your paper. If you actually want to read how it is spelled out.
It says any industry with excessive water usage and
What
no.
page is that?
Page 6 of your packet.
Right, but they wanted to define excessive water.
Yeah, no recharge to aquifer.
Yeah, well, the question was, what is excessive?
Yeah.
We were trying to bring some examples of what might.
I'm sorry, what number was it?
13 under prohibited uses. But that's what they were questioning was.
Yeah.
Oh, no recharge to the aquifer. Gotcha.
That's the original.
Okay.
The question was, what is excessive?
Well, by bringing it back to the recharge.
so maybe we really, I think that's got to be,
Like
I
the
didn't think
ratio.
about that when we were talking about it before, but it really needs to be tied to the recharge.
Yeah.
If you really want to get a good idea of how much water it's costing the town, it's only what's
should be
being
in that
wasted and not
amount.
going to recharge.
Right, so under the prohibited uses, it specifically calls out if it's not gonna recharge to the aquifer, it's prohibited.
Like that field out there, you know, where they treat the water and they put it back in the ground, right? Or on the ground?
The recharge,
The recharge fields,
Mhm.
whatever you call it.
Right.
How much of that water actually gets down the aquifer?
Basin.
Do you think? Or can you answer that, Frank?
No, that'd be for a geologist to answer.
I've always thought the whole idea of the recharge,
His bunk? Okay.
yeah, I mean,
But I just
But
mean.
ADWR recognizes it. So.
oh, well, sure. I mean, you got to come up with something, and that's what they came up with.
Well,
I-
just because they say that Prescott's recharge fields by the airports, they said there's not a chance one drop of water gets back to this aquifer.
Who says?
Mark Holmes said that.
He did?
Yeah, he said that he doesn't think it would never get back to this aquifer. I don't know.
Yeah,
it
no,
really-
well, you know, and it's, to
Use
me,
it for
that's
the
always
golf
been a
course,
very,
so.
very dark gray area. But it's been
Again, no
accepted.
pun. Yeah.
It's been
I
accepted,
mean,
so
there's-
it's the world we
Yeah,
live in.
there's other methods. You could do deep injection wells and things like that too.
To put it more specifically back in the aquifer, yeah.
But I guess the point to look at is through our recharge basins, we get credit
Uh-huh.
for that water
And
as
that's
far
what I
as our
mean.
portfolio.
That's the
It's
rules we live by.
recognized already as,
And then the water we get credit for, we can technically take back out
Right.
from our
Go
portfolio.
towards development.
yes.
So just to follow up, the next slide talks about keep in mind how much is being used and how much is being returned, and then it gives the two examples we were just discussing. Bottom plant will use about 95% water, but you will only get 5% return, versus something like a micro circuit company, which gives a lot more return on the water usage.
So how do we put that in a policy somewhere?
Well, we don't allow bottling companies or,
Well, we
There's
tie
the
it,
example of
we
the
tie it to
accessible.
recharge.
We tie it to the property development standards, and we can add in.
Okay, so it's gotta be somewhere that says,
Yeah, we can add in the definition of excessive water use.
Yes.
We can set an amount that the developers that come in, they will have to meet.
And it could be a percentage of, I don't know how you would word that, of non-recharge water or something like that. would be-
Percentage of usage, like.
That doesn't recharge.
that doesn't
Maybe
reach.
based
So-
it on Frank's number of 60 to 70%.
Mm-hmm.
Or that.
Yeah.
Like a ratio kind
Yeah,
of
I think
thing.
that's more for residential, but we can double check with Mark and see if
Right.
he's got any better studies. It's almost a kind of a black box as far as coming up with that number. There's no real defined.
Can there be a defined gallons?
Well, that would be something,
That's the
Council would-
non-recharge.
that would be direction we'd look for from council to set that number. There's no industry standard because it depends on where you are in the country, how much water you have available.
I think once we get everything laid out with the park, the landscaping and everything we're gonna use, there's no reason that we couldn't do a model and get some input from a quality landscaper. And they're gonna say, on an average, you're gonna use this much water to landscape this facility per month on an average throughout the year. And then you take how much water that person's using, or, you know, what that facility's being used for, if it's a care facility or whatever it is, and landscaping may come up to be 5%
You gotta use
of
that
what
as
they
percent.
use, you know, and if they don't waste any, you know, if their whatever they're doing doesn't waste any more water, if landscaping's the only thing you're looking at.
Do we want anything along the lines of, say, an export of water, whether it be bottling or anything like that, would that?
I don't think I think if we could come up with some kind of a percentage of non-rechargeable water is the limit, then you're gonna automatically boot those people.
Yeah,
You don't even have to spell them out. They're not gonna be able to make that.
'Cause they're
that
not
mark.
recharged.
The bottling company would never.
Yeah.
So a percentage would be a number.
Yeah, and you just use that, and if it's not a business that can say they're gonna recharge that percentage, then they don't fit.
Yeah, you have to recharge.
Could we
specify
do,
the amount of
could we do
recharge.
dry
Okay.
landscaping out there, since it's an industrial park?
We're
And-
looking at that.
Like the Xeriscape type.
It is not an industrial park.
It's a
Excuse me.
business park.
Thank
Business park?
We have.
Way to go, Corey.
You wanna,
Bing, 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 bing.
Corey 1, Jack 0.
I mean, could we not do a dry landscape? Because I know the town had, when we like built Station 2 and 1, we did the model, you had to put so many trees in and all that.
Drought tolerant, yeah.
There are drought tolerant trees. It's called Xeriscape landscaping. We could look at that for the business park out at Old Home Manor. Currently, our code does not have a tree selection that we require one way or the other. But as we update the other sections of the UDO, we can include something like that we would prefer Xeriscape type landscape.
and I could jump in on that. As far as that goes, that's actually part of the integrated water master plan that we're looking at out there. Is how to best utilize the runoff that occurs from rainfall and try and capture that and utilize that as part of the landscaping process. So there will be some landscaping components to that master plan is the concept we're looking at now, which might have some best management practices as far as what types of landscaping to use to conserve water and get the best use of what we've got out there.
How do we fix number 13 with excessive water usage?
I think we leave it as is, and then we add in the development standards underneath E to state a specific percentage of water that has to be recharged.
Maybe suggest 30% for now.
Everybody-
and see how that- oh, sorry.
Just ecstatic about that? Okay,
Yeah, develop that number.
yeah.
Oh.
Okay, let's go on to the next item.
Right, so now we're talking about excessive particles and other pollution. And that's in reference to D14 that talks about dirty industries that emit excessive particles and other pollutants. So this is what Frank came up with. And basically it's stating that no business shall discharge pollutants to exceed 0.075 parts per million per daily maximum of 8-hour average. And again, this is additional language that we can add to the development standards.
So do we have any examples of what
Yeah.
kind of businesses would not make it?
Not really, because this is a hard number to actually measure. This is what the standard Phoenix is held to.
Is this like an EPA standard?
Yeah, and that actually should be in between national and air should be ambient air quality standards. So it's more of an overall reading. So I don't know that you can measure the output from one particular.
It's measured from stations that they have
Yeah.
around town.
As far as that goes, so you would have to have that as part of the documents coming in of what sort of average pollutants that industry would generate as part of your development documents. Sort
It's
of
not
like
industrial though, so it's not gonna have a lot of.
Yeah.
Shouldn't.
It seems to me like this would be
manufacturing plant.
more pertain to somebody that would be burning something
Yeah,
to
like a
create
coal
something, like
producing or-
Milton Steel or something, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that same thing, and that shouldn't be out there.
I don't know what a pollutant
Well, or
is.
you could, I mean, what if you had a powder coating facility?
And that's a good point.
Which going by, I'm looking down our permitted uses, on which ones could. Printing could possibly, welding and machine shops could possibly, do their ventilation systems. So, again, I think they would just have to meet the
Auto
EPA
body.
standard, you know.
Yeah, in my mind, that's part of the site review process that they come in and they say, well, our average discharge for this industry is so many parts per billion or something like that is what we would look
Then you
at
need
when
to
we're
filter it.
looking at the
Well, you need to
business
filter,
coming
yeah.
in. is the way
Because I have no idea what this is. You know, I mean, I'm good with a good, clean industry, but by the same token, I don't want to strangle ourselves to where we put something in there that's so pure that we can't do anything.
Right.
Well, yeah, I was just saying, like, if you had a powder coating or a body, auto body, you know, painting or something, that might be a problem, but if they filtered it, but I'm sure that's regulated. I know
That's what I'm thinking,
paint
it's
booths for
regulated
cars
federally.
are terribly constringent, is that the right word?
Restrictive.
Well, and they've got some really awesome filtration systems too, you know, coming off of paint booths and stuff nowadays.
Yep.
So, I mean, they cost money.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
But
cleaning
they-
coal so much, I can't get the fly ash anymore.
You mean flies don't give fly?
No, fly ash, I
Oh.
used to use that in road construction.
So then, do we know if that 0.075 parts per million, what would that,
That's an EPA standard for probably general standard. Now, specifically, you'd have to go in for the industry that, I worked for a power company, and we had specific EPA standards that we had to meet with filters on our own. We had a gas-fired generator station.
so then answer, we could just put that in as our,
You said
That
that's
was
what
in there.
Phoenix is?
Phoenix achieved this standard in 2015, I think. So they now meet that standard and they're within compliance of the Clean Air Act.
And they meet it, that's just in a general zone.
Yeah, they'll have, like I said, air monitoring stations throughout town, and the conglomerate of those, the EPA determined that they actually, through there, and I think in Phoenix, if it's like from Denver where I lived for a while, that's where all your emissions testing and things was because they were out of compliance with that. And all those measures help bring them into compliance with those clean air
That's
standards.
tough for Phoenix and that sinkhole they're in down there.
In the valley, yeah.
And since
Yeah.
we're not as developed, we don't,
We should have that.
we've got enough open area that we're not even close to
Yeah, we should.
violating that standard for ambient air.
We can keep it as clean as possible
Yeah.
by putting in
so
a,
should you just add that paragraph into item 14?
Or
do
is
you
it under
put it as a
E?
separate item?
I would actually leave it more general than that and modify 14 to say excessive particulates or other pollution according to EPA standards.
Works for me.
That way,
I would agree.
Gives us some wiggle room.
Same changes.
yeah, that way we're
That'd be
not,
your industry standard.
we're not called out to say, well, how are you gonna measure that? I'd rather not be called out.
Great, yeah.
Okay, I like that.
Any questions?
Amen.
All right, so just last few slides, some council members asked staff to give visual comparisons of what the business park is versus an industrial park. When you see these next slides, just keep in mind the difference between the business park and an industrial park when it comes to aesthetics and connectivity between the different buildings. You gotta keep in mind that within the business park, we're gonna have several types of uses. And this is done through street layout, through landscaping, walking paths, and the layout of the buildings and where they're located. So this is basically examples of what a business park looks like. And then the next slides are gonna be examples of what an industrial park looks like. And you see, you know, the bigger buildings, the material of the buildings are different than those of the business park. There's not a lot of connectivity or.
There's not much architectural standards either. They're just flat walls. Whereas if you go back to the business parks, they've created visual interest with the sides of the buildings. There's windows, there's walk paths, there's places for the employees to go and sit and take a break and eat lunch, things like that. The industrial parks, they just have, they have minimal landscaping, they've got their parking lots, they have really no architectural design.
I think you're being a little slanted.
A little bit.
You didn't include my pictures though, did you, Alex? I have other pictures of industrial parks as well that are a lot softer as well. They're not just.
What can we sell out there? That's my
We
question.
do have access to
What can we?
Industrial parks are usually located, you know, like Cicely and I were talking about, near an airport, and you tend to get more
Yeah.
ghetto-ish kind of
Well,
growth
we're near an
around it
airport.
because-
Give me a minute, I'll find.
No, I mean like right where like
I know,
Prescott's.
right in the middle here.
So, by those slides, then there would be a landscape water usage.
Yeah, well, there will be, and that's.
Yeah,
but that's
I see, I was thinking more
Okay, but
the old US Motors building, if you
ours
were.
probably won't have that much grass.
I understand, but I'm still, just
Yeah,
with
that was in
walking
South
paths
Carolina.
and,
Yeah.
what's
They
that?
will have.
That was in South Carolina, that's why they had all the grass.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
It was free.
Examples.
Yep. All right, these are the pictures that Councilmember Mendoza was talking about.
And were most of these from Tolleson?
No.
No,
These are
okay.
down between Phoenix and Tempe area.
I know what you're talking about. I've been through there.
So was that a business or is those
These-
industrial?
Could be either.
Well, see, that's where I'm.
It's a little bit
One of my
lighter
notes
industrial.
is, where do you draw the line between business park and industrial park?
Haven't we already
Well,
drawn the line with the
I would
purpose?
say we want more along the lines of, go to that last picture, because
Okay.
that was actually a decent picture.
And,
This one, right?
yeah, and that might be more in line of,
And I think this is more in line with the business park and what we're
Business
shooting
park, yeah.
for. The previous photos, I think that's more in line of an industrial park.
Okay.
There's minimal landscaping, a lot of asphalt,
Mhm.
the building is just
Square.
Okay.
That's different standards
Building.
too.
This is another example.
Everybody
Right.
hates asphalt.
So here's the rear of
one of them.
one of them, which I would consider an industrial park type building.
Mhm.
It doesn't have the visual interest. It's strictly for moving merchandise.
You could drop, okay, that one. Now, see, that's kind of more of what, in my mind, that I would want out there, because now you do have somewhat of a showroom, you do have a slight bit of
Right.
landscape, minimal, but you have a lot of warehouse possibility to that.
And those,
But to say that that isn't
well, no,
architectural,
I would consider, I think we're actually on the same page, because I would
Okay.
consider that more in line with what we would want out there.
And the back of that building may look like the previous picture.
Right.
Where there's docks to load up and doors and.
Yes.
But the standards that we've included in here for property development standards state that each business park as part of the design shall include an addition of a facade on each structure on each side facing a street. So if that building, any side of that building that faces a street, whether it's arterial or interior, needs to have a facade that creates the visual interest. If it doesn't face a street, then it can technically look like that because nobody's gonna see it. That's the goal. The goal is, we don't want people to see that. We want people to see the visual interest.
So is a street, would you consider an alleyway? Because here again, down off of Roosevelt down there in Tolleson is where I think of, that's where pump suppliers and things, pipe suppliers that I use are. And the front of their buildings look like this, you know, kind of, where you have your office area. And then there may be 4 or 6 office spaces there. Then they have a break. And they have an alleyway that goes back behind, and that's where the semis go back in the back and they get through that. Are those alleyways, are you calling those a road?
No,
Okay.
if an alleyway were designed into the business park, I would not consider that a roadway.
Okay.
Because the public is not gonna be traveling down.
Right.
The public is gonna be traveling down the access, the front where they park, they're gonna be traveling down the actual roadways throughout the entire business park and on surrounding arterials.
There's almost your alleyway right there, Lon, see it?
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah, it goes back and around. So I see, when we look at the pictures, you know, I see where we could have both. We could have more of the, here, and that's what I was saying before, was the professional building with doctors, you know, attorneys, whatever you might have in an office type setting. And then you could have another portion that was more, a little heavier truck traffic type stuff.
Well, all of that would be taken care of during the site plan review. So when they would come in, they would have to meet the permitted use
Okay.
outright, or they would have to go through a conditional use permit process. The conditional use permit process allows us to place additional conditions on them. If it is a more intensive type use and might negatively impact the existing offices or whatever else we have out there, we can add additional landscaping requirements, additional screening requirements, things like that. That would have to come to Planning Commission, Town Council before they get approval for their site plan review. Okay? If they're a permitted use, then they go through site plan review, and then we look at the landscaping, we look at the parking, we look at, to make sure that they deal with the grading and drainage. These are all things that are taken care of during the site plan review process. And the landscaping requirements are not just the landscaping for the business park on a whole, but we've got a whole section that requires landscaping in the code.
okay.
And
So if this is kind of more like one side, that's a plumbing outfit, and there was a half a dozen plumbing trucks that were assigned to that. This here was actually on the right-hand side, those trucks there were some sort of home builder that, you know, his trucks went out, and they each had their own small showroom, and then they had their warehouses behind. Alex, go back to the menu there. And I'm trying to get some of the maybe the second row down to the right.
I'll just see if I can bring them all up, and then we can scroll through them.
Kind of okay. The problem that I have with this, and this is why Cecilia, I stopped at the purpose. If we start going into more fudging the business park definition here into the industrial side of things, this purpose doesn't match kind of what I had, the range of allowances that I would want to see at Old Home Manor personally.
Is that better to see so you can show
Yeah,
which one?
yeah, like any one of, I lost me.
Oh, I just scrolled down.
I don't know if this is pertinent, but as far as Old Home Manor
Okay.
in particular,
Top row,
some of the preliminary
To the-
designs
yeah.
actually had
yes.
different types of uses called out for in that plan of heavier uses in one area with lighter uses in another,
That's what I thought too.
Yeah.
Okay.
for
Now,
Old Home in particular.
when we started talking the 20 acre, the 20 acre number, to me, if we allocated this into, 20 acre blocks, that within that 120 acre block, you had, say, this type of design. If we go, step me back and then go to the right of where that one was, that one there. Okay, that's the back side of the previous picture. This is definitely, a lot more
It's like a loading zone.
massive. Back behind those, so we have the landscape up front, you have a small showroom. Between those two buildings, that was nothing but a huge semi parking lot basically for deliveries to come in and out. Our business park definition doesn't get anywhere near this type of allowance. If we're gonna do things, and again, in my mind, a 20 acre blocks, that everything within that 20 acres is gonna be one of these. Or it may be that smaller where you have the plumbing trucks. So each one has its own theme or its own purpose
I guess
That's light
or
industrial.
business
Absolutely.
size.
The purpose statement actually would cover this because
Would
it
it?
deals with light manufacturing in an attractive setting. And
Plus packaging companies,
correct. And if you look at these buildings,
warehouses.
even though the faces of the buildings themselves don't have any undulation, they don't have any real aesthetics to them, they don't have windows or whatever, they do include a color scheme that breaks up the way that the eye sees it, which does create some visual interest.
They're also not facing a street.
And they're not metal buildings either.
No, and in fact, this,
So in this case, I would probably state that this industrial park or business park was required to put in four-sided architecture with four-sided visual interests, and that's not what we're requiring. Now, if you want us to require that, you could actually make it flow on all four sides of the buildings.
so many of these business or industrial parks, they were almost surrounded by a perimeter. Many of them, you actually entered into that 20 acre
Complex.
piece.
Right.
Now, outside that surrounding, decorative wall that they had, there you had your really nice landscaping that as the people drove down the public street, yes, they see a nice manicured, but then once you came through the gate, it's business.
Right,
And
this is
the
what-
requirements were
Yep.
much less.
That would work under that purpose.
Well, that's right, it would, and this business district actually requires a perimeter landscape.
And you could have little business
And
condos
screening.
too,
And screening.
Uh-huh.
smaller ones, so.
And the screening is not chain link, it's seam,
Yes.
block wall,
Yeah.
or stucco, that's what we put in.
I just hear, high quality business park primarily for office administrative, medical, research industries, and light manufacturing.
That's light manufacturing.
If this, again, that's where I have my note, what is the line between business park, industrial park, light manufacturing,
Well-
heavy manufacturing, what is?
The way this is laid out is the purpose statement provides the general purpose of what this district is meant to accomplish. And then the permitted uses and the conditional uses actually get into those specific uses of what we want in this zone. So all the different things that you've mentioned, the plumbing company, things like that, they I believe would all fall in here in the different types of uses that are listed here.
Okay.
So,
The other part that I want to distinguish between Old Home Manor and what the town is going to go forward with is how many of these items can be done within private properties and commercial properties that are already in the town?
I mean,
or-
how many 20 acre parcels are available that would meet the general plan and be,
Yeah.
Well, would they have sewer and water?
You know,
Do they have-
Probably
Well,
very few have
so-
sewer and
another
water.
sewer and water is not required.
If you have a
Right, but-
manufacturing
Well,
like
that's
that,
not
they want sewer
necessarily
and water.
true,
Yeah.
because we're putting a property development standard that we just discussed, stating that they have to recharge
Have to recharge.
X percentage.
That goes for every
back
business
to the
park.
owner. So if they don't have access to water or sewer, it would automatically,
That's
They're gonna have
not.
right, it's
Where
not
is
in
it?
here
Where is
yet.
it?
We're
Because
just
we just
defining
discussed
it.
it, and I was gonna add it into the property development standards.
That's what we were replacing excessive with, was
So-
a percentage of
So,
recharge.
a prohibited use is anything that is an excessive water use business that does not recharge into the aquifer. And then I was gonna add in property development standards that basically stated they are required to recharge a minimum of X percentage of water usage back into the aquifer in order to be a permitted use. So if they don't have access to water or sewer, then that property already is,
Well, water, they wouldn't have to be off of town water, but they would have to be on town sewer.
that's correct.
So you couldn't get,
Well, for a well, but I don't know if.
I'm just saying, in order to recharge.
Yeah.
You can
You
recharge
can't-
from a well.
you
You
can't
can still
get,
go into the sewer.
you can't get credit from your septic
Just me, I don't know,
recharging
it's
in the
the
ground.
No, not septic. You have to be hooked up to the sewer to
Okay.
recharge so that the town got credit for it.
I was just curious, you got a leach line, I don't know where the water goes, but
Yeah,
most of
they-
it goes
No,
up.
it's,
They call that a dead.
What if these buildings have one toilet? That's all they use water for.
It's gonna be a busy
I would
restroom.
imagine they
It's gonna
have
be
one
busy.
of those.
They can't have one, they have to have another one, right?
you've
What
got a
does it
certain
say
amount per square feet.
Yeah, I was gonna say the building code will dictate that, and then the use.
Okay, they got 5 toilets. Is that gonna be enough?
But I
to
guess the other
recharge?
part, Corey, I understand, I think you're kinda talking about the town competing maybe with private property, but, you know, we've already had money invested in this from the feds, we can't just stop trying to develop this out there.
What I want to do is create something that public can't. You know,
Oh.
that something is a little more, you know, a little bigger, a little grander, you know. And
I
if
actually
we were
already
to-
think this is grander than,
Looking at some of those business, you know, business park ideas that were more of the
Do you have an
professional,
example, do you have an
professional
example of that
buildings.
in town now?
The what?
Do you have an example of that kind of business in town right now?
I mean,
That we have in Chino?
have you even been out to Prescott's Business Park? I know you've been out there, their industrial park, this is 100 times better where we're heading
There's
on
nothing
this
like
and
this
what they
in the-
have in the Tri-City area.
Correct me if I'm wrong as well, but once the zoning district is created and we rezone that property, we still have the strategic plan and the master plan that we need to put
And
together.
it
Yes,
comes for council
yeah.
for approval anyways.
Right.
Right, and during that process, I think we can kind of fine tune the design and the signage requirements and the color
Okay.
scheme and anything else that
We
the
can't do any
council
of that
wants.
until
Yeah,
see the
we're-
first-
we're-
get over this first
We can kind of get
hurdle.
into, we get to a point to where we're trying to pinpoint this thing too much.
much,
You know, it's like, well, no, we need the color of the tuxedos and the wedding dress before we decide whether we're gonna get married or not. You know?
Yes, and I'm actually trying to expand this bigger than what I was seeing as a business park.
Are we
I
gonna
want to see
compete
it
with
allowed
businesses
to-
in
to-
towns?
To go into that industrial level.
Are we gonna compete with business in town? No, we're not going, that's why we wanna get them out here. They don't wanna compete with
I've been,
business.
Okay.
contacted by
And-
call
But they
center, for
still
example.
become part of our town.
You say that, but majority of these uses are typical business type uses. They can fit anywhere,
They can fit
anywhere
there,
in town.
yes, but these are still, within this park, they're still our businesses. Whether they're located there or located somewhere else in
We
town.
can also look through the UDO rewrite of creating an industrial park standard
Mhm.
that would allow for the creation of more heavy uses in an industrial park setting
Okay.
and define where those need to
Be
go.
more bare bones.
But I think for Old Home Manor,
Okay, this is exactly, what Josh just said is exactly what I'm trying to expose here. Josh has his idea of what a business park and the direction that we should go for Old Home Manor.
don't know if it's specifically my
Yeah.
idea
Well,
alone. I've taken the ball and
Kept it
Yeah.
moving,
Yeah,
yeah.
but you were definitely slanted on, you know, you don't
I
want
have
this,
an
you want
opinion.
that. You have an opinion, and that's.
Is your
that's fine.
problem with other parks other than the Old Home Manor Business Park? Are you afraid that we're gonna have all these industrial parks all over Chino Valley? Is that your concern? Or is it,
Oh, no, I don't, if they qualify, then they can do it. You know, if they have that 20-acre minimum.
I'm trying to understand
Um,
what your concern is.
are you wanting to expand the uses to be more heavy in nature? Is that
Is that what you want?
That's what I think that would be more apt to come to Chino Valley.
And how far do you wanna go? You wanna go to heavy industry?
I'd have to know what the definition of heavy industry is. You know, are we, you know,
code has?
Light industrial will allow for what you're thinking.
okay,
So packaging facility, that kind of thing, that's the kind of stuff that'll probably initially come here to create a workforce, and once the housing keeps coming, then you have places for people to live to create a bigger workforce that'll drive more office. So initially, you're gonna be looking at more light manufacturing, a call center. That's probably what's gonna be our first wave out there. And then you might see office later. But what you're thinking is exactly probably what's going to be happening out there. Heavy manufacturing you don't want out there. That's
Is
gonna be
what?
pollutants, that's gonna be trucks that those roadways cannot handle. They'd be crushed in 2 months.
They're already crushed.
So you can't have heavy manufacturing out there, it just won't hold it.
This is the current definition for industrial in the town. This district is intended to provide for and encourage industrial development within the town while ensuring that such activities will have minimal impacts on the surrounding districts. Residential dwellings are prohibited in the I zoning district. That last sentence shouldn't even be there.
It should be a
It's-
given, yeah.
Right, well, that should be in that, just excluding residential
We're-
from the list of permitted uses
I'm not
automatically.
talking about batch plants and hot plants. That's not what
Well,
I'm
well, that's what
talking
heavy
about.
Right now,
That's what it is.
That is what's in industrial now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your town doesn't differentiate between light or heavy industrial currently.
But, say, a truck terminal, you're saying, no truck terminal, we can't support it because of our roadways.
I would say that's more heavy in nature.
That would be heavy, and they would probably look at it themselves and go, oh, heck no, this is not gonna work.
Permanent ideal
So,
location for.
Way
You
out
know,
there off the
they'll be
highway.
realistic as an owner and operator of a business too, while they're coming in, they're gonna look at all the details, so.
Go back to the one, we'll see what,
There's no
scroll
rail.
down, no, see the sign? Right there.
Pine,
That is where those,
Bless you.
that is where those
Bless
plumbing
you.
trucks were. So there's a business center there. That's something that I could see easily out there. And it basically has its own private roads in and out within its boundaries there.
It's gonna be a lot market driven, remember that, so we don't have a crystal ball saying, hey, this is what we want out there, it's not about what we want, the market's gonna drive it, and the nature of Chino Valley is gonna drive it.
Okay.
So I think that it's controllable.
So the conversation is now going to, are we doing a spec building?
Absolutely,
Or,
I would say for sure, because if you don't have a spec building, you
well,
don't
we're-
have the whole building, you can come.
we're not there yet with spec
This
buildings.
is zoning
Well,
on the agenda.
Not only that, but since we'll be
Yeah.
leasing it to the users, they're not gonna wanna invest the capital to build a building that's not theirs.
Yes.
So they'll invest the capital to put tenant improvements in so they can design a space within the spec building.
That'll bring more people, if you can have that building with the signage out there to bring it to life and give it extra breath.
okay.
I think
So-
it's-
So right now, we're basically just looking at a business park. This right here really has nothing to do with Old Home Manor. This is nothing more than adding,
This has everything to do with Old Home Manor, but it also provides entitlement opportunities to developers that come to town, because without the entitlement or the creation of the business park district, there is no Old Home
It's
Manor
not
business.
specific to Old Home Manor.
Yeah,
that's,
yeah, it's
that-
not.
that's
It's
what I'm
not-
saying.
you're right.
What we have right here is a business park model
Zoning
design
district.
Yep.
regulations
But the creation of
are
Old
just
Home Manor,
another
Zoning district.
zoning
Zoning
district
district,
within our
Mhm.
arsenal of what we
Yes.
correct,
we have to offer.
right. So people that wanna
So-
develop here, they can do commercial, light commercial, heavy, business park, industrial.
So as far as to move this ball forward,
With council approval.
I am perfectly okay with, personally, establishing a business park zoning district within our town. Now, when we actually get down to rezoning Old Home Manor, I think there's a whole lot more that we need to know before we rezone that to a business park out there. And that's gonna be a whole nother.
But that's what we're doing.
Well,
That's
these
what
are
we're
two
doing.
items coming up next week.
That's
Yeah,
what we're
that's the
doing.
process right now.
That's what we're trying
We're
to.
doing them hand in hand.
Are
That's
we-
why we're here.
We're creating the
That's why
business
we're
zone,
here.
we're rezoning.
We're doing them hand in hand.
We're setting a zoning business park zone. It could be at Old Home Manor, it could be somewhere else in town.
We're creating the zone, we're rezoning,
That's right.
hand in hand. We're trying to do them, but it's a two-step process. We're creating the zone as
There'll
well
be
as,
two actions.
yeah. But we're trying to do them simultaneously, yes.
For,
And I think we're still kind of struggling with what your concerns are with Old Home Manor having the business zoning. Because I don't quite get
okay,
it.
That's a name, that's a
we
name.
talked about, what type of square footage is, and it's like, okay, we have no square footage minimums.
We're
Oh,
not
wait.
there yet.
We don't need,
We're not there yet.
We're not.
that's
You-
market driven. It really is market driven.
Yes. it's
This is just the
market-driven.
rezoning part, that'll come,
Right, so that's gonna come through, I mean, if it's a private business park, so it's not Old Home Manor, it's another one, the developer's gonna have an idea of what kind of size of buildings he's gonna wanna put in, or she is gonna wanna put in there. If
Based
we-
on the market.
Right,
Based on
so
Maybe they're gonna-
that we
If
do
we're
have-
too restrictive, we'll never get anybody in.
The only thing in this business park that deals anywhere with square footage is the fact that it says it's got no building coverage minimum. Which means technically, if they meet all the parking and all the landscaping standards, they can fill the property up
With
with the
one-
building.
One building could
One
take the whole
building
thing.
or multiple
As long as they
buildings
meet
or
them.
however they want, but we're not pigeonholing the developer into, you have to have a minimum of X square footage.
Okay,
I bet every
Well,
one of those
now-
pictures you have up there, Corey, they developed the same way.
I suspect not. I suspect an individual or a conglomerate came in and bought a section of land.
They probably bought
And they
this
said,
part, and then
okay.
somebody wanted a bigger section, somebody wanted a smaller section, and they were designed for that business.
Okay. Our whole purpose of this is to bring economic development,
Yep,
That's correct.
Jobs.
and jobs.
Jobs.
Jobs is the whole purpose.
yes. So, do we not require, who do we entertain then that comes out there?
That's her job.
That's part of the whole strategic plan that we need to develop.
I've already been talking to a call center, we are going as a region, all of its economic development people in the area out to Orange County next month to get in front of a bunch of light industrial business, or owners or investors. So I need to be able to sell something. I can dance around it a little bit, but, the demand is there. For example, at the end of town, past Clayton Homes on the right-hand side, there is the industrial park there. It's called Chino Valley Industrial Park. Kind of run-down building, it's for sale.
Mhm.
I've been in contact with that broker. He's showing it 3 times this week. People are noticing,
Mhm.
starting to take notice.
Which is good, because it's
Yeah.
been sitting there empty for
Yeah.
some time.
Oh.
So that's just an
Manor-
example of there's things are picking up. We're getting our face, our name, or the town's getting its
Okay.
exposure that it needs to have. People come.
So we don't know really who wants to come out there.
Not
Right,
yet.
so
Not yet.
I've been contacted by a call center so far, which is 200 jobs. They do training in the high school, and the colleges, they do.
But we don't build the zoning around like, oh,
No.
this guy came and so now we're trying to create the business park so that we have something to market, which right now, it doesn't have any appropriate zoning, that she can't bring anything out there.
It would be an arrow in her quiver, basically.
Yes.
Where she can say, hey, these types of uses are allowed to go in here, we're creating a spec building.
Look at how
we have
beautiful
water
it
and
is, all the
sewer.
Right now,
we
she
have-
can only sell dirt, because that's all we have out there is
Yeah.
dirt.
Well, there's no
And
permitted
California
uses.
is full of businesses wanting out.
Yes, very much.
I say if that was in such big demand for the price of property right now, you'd already have private
No,
people
no, you won't, it's not ready.
developing their
Nobody
property
knows
out
it's not
there,
ready,
here.
Corey.
and nobody's doing it.
Well, here's
So
the
I
problem
don't
though, we've
know why
already
we
invested
think-
2 million that the feds are starting to say, we were at NACOG a month ago.
Mhm.
Cecilia, where are you guys at the industrial park? We
Same
helped
with
you get the
APS.
money, for that. We wanted to have a progress report. Well, we're hoping to get it rezoned here oh, that's
Go-
nice to hear.
Go and
but-
drive around Prescott Valley, and they're putting people in there every day.
Yeah.
Well, and I talked to Ben the other day, we had our quarterly luncheon. He's the economic development guy out there, and he's the one that's saying, I'll tell you what, until you have the infrastructure, nothing's gonna happen. That's the first thing he said. The other thing he said, they didn't know about Old Home Manor. So now that you guys have me, that's my job to get that out there. 'Cause
What-
it will be.
What industrial or business parks does Prescott Valley, Prescott Valley?
All
Municipal-
there on Fane Road,
Fane Road,
Yeah.
yeah.
that
Yeah.
stuff back behind there is
the
Prescott
stuff
Valley's
around the
industrial
airport.
area. It's kind of hodgepodge
But
back
is
there.
is it owned by the town of Prescott Valley?
I don't know exactly how, they market it, but I don't know
Probably owned
exactly
by
how.
Fane,
Yeah.
That mostly is, yeah.
Yeah, they have that partnership with the Fane family.
with the
So
town,
it's
with the town.
Prescott Valley itself is not the
But,
landlord.
but Corey, I'm
They're
telling
not
you, I
the-
think part of this, that train already left. When you guys decided to take $2 million from the feds, this is what you said you were going to do. And now we can't go back and say we're
What-
competing with
What
the
did we do with the $2 million that we got from the feds?
Water, sewer.
water and
roads,
sewer out to
culverts.
Old Home Manor to develop a 200-acre business park. That was what we had told the feds we were going to do.
And we're working on it tonight.
And by now saying, well, we're competing with the private sector, I don't know that I agree with this. We can't unwind that clock. We've taken the money, we've done the improvements to a certain point.
I don't think you're talking about competing. Are you?
Somewhat, because of the list of businesses that I see here. Can CNR Trucking come to, the town and say, hey, I want to do a truck yard out here. I'm going to employ, and then the town is going to offer me.
Maggie would
it-
No,
No,
but the guy
Maggie
that
would-
has a little business back there where he manufactures airplane parts that wants to expand and's been very frustrated because he can't, would certainly want to go there.
Why can't-
Basically, if you came to our town and said, I want to bring CNR Trucking to your town, this is what I'm going to bring to your town, Maggie would not point you to the business park.
No.
She would say, your
Here's another
property,
spot.
a property that would work for you, that's in line with our general plan, that's in line with
Okay,
our zoning
then-
or whatever, is over here.
Yeah.
Then forget that I have, again, any one of these.
Light manufacturing.
Yeah, I have a welding and machine shop that I want to, are you gonna show me, we got this property out here, and you're gonna lease me this piece of property, or are you gonna build me a spec building for me?
What do you mean build a spec building for
No,
you?
the spec
Typically
buildings-
a spec you build, so what I would suggest out there is just sort of a raw spec building. This
Four walls.
a little bit more
Yeah.
expensive, let someone in come do their own tenant improvements or give them,
But you're
that's
saving
what's
them
gonna
time.
draw somebody here, cause it's already there, it's turnkey and it's ready to go.
There's 6
You-
months of
you don't
tenant
build it for
improvements
someone.
and
You don't have anybody that wants to go in there yet.
Okay, so you build this spec building and I show up, I say, hey, I could turn this into a welding machine shop,
Why not?
It's permitted use.
Huh?
It's permitted use.
Yeah.
And you could rent me that building,
Or a portion of the building,
or a
You
portion
can
of the building.
sometimes subdivide, depending on,
depending on the tenant improvement and what you're proposing to put there.
Which then, what's the rent? We're now getting into.
well, we're not there yet, I don't
Are
know.
we now?
It's
We
leased.
don't have
See,
enough
where you- this is
database.
where-
I
We don't have
just-
that.
I
one
just
is
see us-
zoning and the rest is.
But that's the thing,
Yeah.
we don't need to know that to adopt a business park zoning district, or even to rezone the property. Because that kind of question
To me,
comes in.
that now just you just created one building. Do the next, 19 acres?
I think the bottom line is we have to do something to get it started,
Yeah.
really. I mean, once
We
some of the
can't go in and
signage gets
develop
up
the
and-
entire park because we don't have money.
Yeah.
Okay.
We gotta
It's
develop
kind of
it
like our
business
test
by
puppy, like
business
when
by
you
business.
you sell new homes. you
very
have
small.
model home. That's our model. And if they don't have a model to see or to kind of get an idea what it's gonna feel like out there, then it's so much harder to sell.
Okay, we've been
I'm one of 7, so.
we're
put
beating
it-
the hell out of
put it
this,
on the ballot.
and I'm getting cranky because it's past my bedtime.
Yeah.
So,
Poor Frank, we're probably not gonna get your item again.
yeah, we're not gonna get your item, I think it's a little late for that. How long do you take? Longer than 15 minutes?
Really doing 15 or no? Or
When the mayor says it's tanky, it's time to go.
You know, our meeting on Tuesday night is not, our meeting next week is not that long. I'd rather Frank and Josh do that this
Okay,
next
let's
part
put it on the agenda next week.
I'm-
at the
I'm
council
good.
meeting.
I'm here, so.
We can just,
my boss tells me.
well, he's ultimately the one that decides on the agenda, so,
My evaluation.
We'll move it to the next agenda, to next
Sure.
week.
okay. We don't have that long of a meeting
No,
next week,
we can
so.
do that.
We're already 2 hours into this one and,
Yeah. And we appear confused.
okay, I guess our question, where do we go next
We
with
are
all
gonna put
this on the business
This
part?
will be on the agenda next week, so we can vote on it one way or another. We need to move on it. If it delays, then you won't have anything, so we need a yay or nay next week.
Can I ask a question before we get out? When we were talking earlier about the water and sewer lines, remember we talked, Frank, already in the utilities about doing other things? Are those other things still in progress? Are those in addition to this?
I wasn't at the meeting,
I
so
need
you're
to
looking
know
at
what
me.
other thing-
We talked about maybe Roadrunner Park. We talked about Old Home Manor. Remember, Lon?
Okay,
Well,
so that's part of why we're giving this to you. Not every idea is on here. So if there are additional things that you want,
But my question was, were those things already handled? Because we had
No.
a fund balance. Didn't we, Lonnie? Or Corey?
This is what I think that's what's in here.
No, it wasn't
One of-
even talked about.
One of the
Oh, yeah,
things,
We did.
one of the things that was on there was, under Old Home Manor, was the $100,000 that Joe was talking about. And I think everybody at that meeting was in pretty good,
Yeah.
felt pretty good about going out there and doing a start.
Yeah.
Right.
Doing kind of a roadway in
Yeah.
and go this way
Make it look like something.
to allow to
Make it look like
have
something.
a half a dozen pieces of property that
Right.
were available.
Yeah.
And get that start in. And when we had our last utility meeting, we talked to, you weren't there, right?
The very last one, though, I was.
And we talked to Mark Holmes about that, and that was one of the questions that I brought up to him was, Mark, if you're gonna do this study, with everything at Old Home Manor, if we do that, are we making a mistake? And he said, no. He said, there's plenty of ways of designing around, even if you don't end up with that being 100% what you would have done in the end. He says you can still get around it,
Okay.
design around it, and make it happen.
it's
So,
small enough.
yeah.
There's potential for a few to lose some inefficiencies or
Mhm.
to not be as efficient as maybe you could have been if you took 3 years and developed a very comprehensive plan. But
We're talking a small
the risk
area.
is relatively low for just doing the piece of it.
And I think that's money well spent. I
So-
think we need to start somewhere.
I'm sorry, but I still didn't get an answer to my question. Are those items that we already talked about, are they,
Well, that was in the blue, I thought.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was it.
Joe's
that was the
budget
idea
sheet.
on the blue.
Yeah.
on page 2?
No, that doesn't include Roadrunner Park though.
Doesn't
No.
include
Yeah.
it.
No, Roadrunner Park is something we add to advance
Well,
infrastructure.
in particular with Roadrunner, one of the things that why I was waiting on that is there's another piece of property that could potentially develop that would mean the town wouldn't have to extend the line as much to it, so we could get that much closer. So why waste the money on extending the sewer lines when a developer might do it for us when they develop their property? I'm not, don't know if I'm saying that the right way, but.
Well,
Well,
you're
'cause you
hedging
could
your
have-
bet a little bit and saying if they do this, then that's gonna give us a boost.
Yeah, but there is the chance they won't do it. But
Thank you.
why not
But they're in
look
talking
and see
to
what-
us, or there's momentum, so
Yeah,
there's a potential.
and I think
that-
right now what they saw is that, you know, with the limited amount of funds that in their minds, Road 2 North was right now the best bet because of that's where most of the chatter is for.
Yeah, I was just
development.
wondering if those were already budgeted for, so they were gonna happen and this was gonna happen. I guess
I wish.
that wasn't the case. Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Stop it right about now. Yeah.
I didn't know when his part